Hello and welcome back to another game for the Hearthstone Esports Regional Qualifiers of the 18th Asian Games. My name is Gia and I'll be your caster for this next match between Tuan from Vietnam and Gilgamesh from Malaysia. We are in the group stages and we are part of the Southeast Asian region at the moment. This entire tournament includes 5 different regions in Asia, namely East Asia, Southeast Asia, Central, West, and South Asia. And there's a lot of countries that you might not necessarily see represented in the main Hearthstone circuit or even in HGG, but because this tournament is following somewhat of an Olympic format, you get to see one player from many different from each country, a wide variety of those countries, competing on stage for this Hearthstone Championship. The 18th Asian Games are run by the AESF, and if you want to learn more about them, you can go check out their website at aesf.com. So, this matchup will be between Tuan from Vietnam, who has put in some pretty good results throughout the year. He is the anchor for Team Vietnam in HGG, and Gilgamesh is also a member of his own HGG team for Malaysia. So this first match will be Tuan's Q block up against the Odd Rogue from Gilgamesh. The bans make a lot of sense because Tuan's lineup is a lot slower than Gilgamesh's, and because Gilgamesh's decks are definitely more board-based, he banned away the Quest Warrior for Tuan, and Gilgamesh's Token Druid has also been banned. Alright, the Odd Rogue hand looking pretty strong with the double Vicious Fledglings. I expect this will just be a Firefly into Coin Fledgling kind of curve. And for Tuan, Hellfire should provide a bit of board clear later. Oh, Doomsayer. Pretty good draw here. Although I'm not sure if Tuan will want to play it because he doesn't have the follow-up for the next turn, but it does prevent something like a Coin Vicious Fledgling coming down. Or even Coin Hench Clan Thug could be scary. So Tuan realizes that risk, and he realizes that if he can prevent one turn of development from Gilgamesh, that means that any minion that comes down the next turn will be dead to Hellfire immediately. So Tuan pretty happy just to tap here and wait for Gilgamesh to make the next move. So Vicious Fledgling the obvious choice here. Gilgamesh hoping that there is neither Spellstone nor Hellfire in hand for Tuan, but unfortunately for him, the answer is available. Gilgamesh does have the second one though, and no answer for Tuan available for that Vicious Fledgling. So this could get very brutal for Tuan very soon. So a Spellstone or Hellfire off the top would be huge. Not available though, so Tuan is forced to just go for a Tempo Cube, and this Vicious Fledgling, should the Wind Fury be the draw, could get very scary. I kind of like going for the Stealth here. Missing the Wind Fury is a bit unfortunate, but I think Gilgamesh should have the read that there's neither Spellstone nor Hellfire in hand for Tuan at the moment. So Stealth to protect the Fledgling from the cube trading in makes some sense. Alright, going for +1/+1 means that Gilgamesh intends to clear the cube this way. Okay, also makes sense because you don't expect a Spellstone to be in hand here. And this board is also resilient against Defile. Yeah, Tuan forced to just play out the Lackey here. Not much other choice, but this Vicious Fledgling could end the game very soon. Still no Wind Fury available, but I expect this to definitely be Stealth now. And Hench Clan Thug plus Dagger and Deadly Poison can pile on the hurt. Alright, so Tuan is desperately hoping to get a Void Lord off of this Lackey. And he kind of has two tries because Gilgamesh is unlikely to clear it, and Tuan can go for Faceless on the Lackey and double Dark Pact. If he goes for Dark Pact now and gets the Doom Guard instead... Okay, so with the draw of the Doom Guard, it's much more likely that he gets Void Lord, and so I think I wouldn't mind him just trading the Lackey in and then Facelessing one of the Void Lords. Okay, with this, I actually even like Lord... Okay, never mind. Yeah, Cube Void Lord is fine. Lord Godfrey was also a consideration. It would have blown up Gilgamesh's entire board, and because he'd have had a taunt in the way, Leroy was not that scary either. Either way though, I think Tuan has just set up a 100% win for himself from this point. Gilgamesh gonna do his best to clean up this mess, but whatever minions are left will be blown up by Lord Godfrey, and in a few turns Tuan will be able to play Gul'dan home free. The hand is super light for Gilgamesh, and I don't really see what single card he can top deck to get him out of this situation. So a simple Dark Pact on one of the Void Walkers, and then Lord Godfrey would clear everything. However, that would leave Tuan with no taunts, so I don't think Tuan will be rushing to do that quite yet. Other options include Faceless Manipulator onto the Vicious Fledgling perhaps, to try and create his own pressure behind this wall of taunts. Honestly, I kind of just like the Dark Pact and Godfrey play. Tuan disagrees though, instead choosing to set up Spirit Slinger Umbra, and realizing that with only one card in hand, and because Tuan has definitely tracked this, the other card is Coin, Gilgamesh is very unlikely to be able to deal with all of these Void Walkers. The only thing I could think of would be some kind of shenanigans off of Blink Fox, which is not even in hand for Gilgamesh. So can't blame Tuan for taking a little bit more time here. And now surely this is the Dark Pact and Godfrey turn. Dark Pact would put him out of range of a Leroy plus Dagger lethal, and Godfrey would set up an empty board for a really strong Gul'dan on the following turn. And Tuan has just given himself 100% to win the game. Or did I speak too soon? I don't think there's any one Warlock card that could be drastic enough to change this, and it's definitely not Clutch Mother Zavas, if anything. So Gilgamesh here just hoping that the Gul'dan is not in hand yet, but this will spell the end. The end in a massive wall of taunts. So Tuan will be taking the first game with his Q block, and interestingly enough, Gilgamesh is not running his own Warlock, even though the deck has been highly represented in tournaments recently. Instead, he's got a mid-range Hunter, which is an interesting meta call. I believe Goatee from Mongolia has also brought the deck and has shown some pretty good results. So Hunter, if you're expecting, I guess, a bunch of like slower druids and Q blocks, can't be the worst choice. Aside from the Hunter, Gilgamesh also has a Malagos Druid, which has been banned away because it prays against these slower decks from Tuan. Makes a lot of sense. And Gilgamesh finally rounding out the lineup with Odd Paladin, which is probably one of the most popular decks in this tournament. So Tuan's remaining two decks are his Miracle Rogue and Taunt Druid, and he's shown some pretty efficient, skillful play so far with both of these decks, capable of winning unfavorables. So I expect Tuan to just keep up the clean play and show everyone why he is the anchor of Vietnam. That's not to diminish Gilgamesh's achievements though, because he is also part of an HGG team for Malaysia, and he's had some pretty decent results throughout the years, having previously been part of the WESG Asia Pacific qualifier and making a run through the 2016 HCT Southeast Asian preliminary. So Gilgamesh picking up the Corridor Creeper early on, always something you want to see. The Tuan has a Master Oakheart, so if he picks up a bunch of ramp early off the top, then Gilgamesh just might not be able to get there. Blessing of Might, a really powerful card for the Odd Paladin in the matchup. Just makes it so that any small threat can quickly pile on the damage. You ideally want to put it on a Divine Shield minion so it's not so weak to a single Hero Power or Wrath or Swipe. But in this case, I feel like Gilgamesh will just use a Blessing of Might next turn. Tuan basically waiting around until he can play Nourish into Coin Oakheart, which usually spells the end for most aggressive decks if they have not won the game yet by then. And Gilgamesh here hoping that the Coin Swipe is not available, and so far as we can see it is not. But Tuan can of course play out. Okay, never mind, there's the swipe. Oh my goodness. That is a real heartbreaker for Gilgamesh. Not only does it remove all of his early pressure, it also makes it difficult for him to build up into a good level up. Although this is still a pretty good board. Who am I kidding? Corridor Creeper, good card. Good card. And Hero Power for 2 Silverhand Recruits, also a good effect. Oaken Summon's gonna put a little bit of a damper on this pressure, but Gilgamesh has the refill to keep coming. I don't think this is the level up turn quite yet. He can instead go for Stonehill Defender and Hero Power. Having just seen one swipe, I don't think Gilgamesh has to be... I think Gilgamesh can afford to be a little bit greedier with the level up. So a Sunkeeper Tarim is often the best pickup here, although you can't really complain about just another Righteous Protector, I assume. Because the hand's looking light, I guess Phantom Militia is also a decent option. And Gilgamesh getting ready for a very nice level up here. No second swipe coming into the hand for Tuan, so the best he will be able to do this turn is just remove the Stonehill Defender, I assume. If you're worried about Sunkeeper Tarim, it makes more sense to remove the Righteous Protector. But even without Tarim, this level up will be absolutely brutal. Combined with Akar's Veteran, Gilgamesh will not even have to trade any minions and have them die. Oh, sorry, my bad. He will have to, because even if he buffs either the Corridor Creeper or the Stonehill Defender, it won't be adding up to 5. So I assume he just buffs up one recruit, sends it in along with the Stonehill Defender, and then goes face for 11. Not quite bad at all. He could also, yeah, it makes a little bit more sense to buff up a recruit that you won't be trading, I assume, because you can trade in Corridor Creeper plus an unbuffed recruit and then send a 4/3 recruit to the face. You still get the same amount of damage and maintain the buff on your minion, but you do lose health on the Corridor Creeper. So this one was a slightly better play against Primordial Drake. So Fungal Mancer gonna allow Gilgamesh to push through. He can trade in double recruits and then fill up with 2 new ones. But Oakheart will be coming down.
Reporting for duty.
So if this pulls another Primordial Drake off of the Dragon Hatcher, I think that Gilgamesh still has enough to push through. Okay, so Lyra goes into the 3/6. Nope, never mind. Gilgamesh will only have 3 damage to the face in that case. Unidentified Maul could make a big difference, but that is the worst roll. A real heartbreaker gets another. Oh my god, double sacred. Gilgamesh. Man, that feels awful. A plus attack there would have been insane. Even Divine Shield to maintain his Corridor Creeper at the very least. But no such luck. So I think the game plan for Gilgamesh is to go for Stonehill Defender and try to fish for Sunkeeper Tarim or something like that. There it is. There is hope yet for Gilgamesh. Ooh, the ordering. Oof, he missed 1 silver hand recruit by doing that. Yikes. So I assume he was, yeah, at least gonna push in 1 minion here. Little bit of rope anxiety for Gilgamesh there. But he's still in a decent spot because second swipe is not in hand for Tuan. And he doesn't have any good ways of clearing the board. He can go for a triple trade and Spellstone and Hero Power. That actually will only leave 1 minion on board for Gilgamesh. But Gilgamesh can go for Hero Power, Righteous Protector, and Tarim for the refill. Alright, nice and clean for Tuan here, already cashing in the armor gain because he is planning to UI next turn, no doubt.
The light dims, but we fight.
So Gilgamesh, no hesitations on this play. Nice and neat, and I believe that no more dragons are available for the Dragon Hatcher to pull. So Tuan can go for the UI, or perhaps Hadronox and Naturalize to make his board super wide again. You bump in the Primordial Drake, and the Oakheart, and even the Dragon Hatcher. Okay, Tuan instead choosing to go for the Lich King, realizing that his health total is not so low that he needs to overreact with a Hadronox quite yet. And Gilgamesh with these double useless mauls. Yeah, it's not looking so good. He can push 6 to the face though with Leroy and the maul. So the Tarim goes into the 3/3, Leroy plus the maul attack goes into the Lich King. Double recruits hit face. And you can fit in a hero power as well. Gilgamesh deciding not to cash in the Leroy quite yet though, and I'm not sure I agree with this. He can develop double militia, which would have been less power on board than those 2/3/3 recruits. But I guess it kind of cancels out, because if you had played Leroy, you'd give your opponent double 1/1s. But the fact that he had Tarim as a taunt there made it seem a bit more enticing than just going for the Phantom Militia. Anyway, Tuan has a pretty insane Hadronox coming out, featuring the Lich King, double Primordial Drake, double Ironwood Golem, and the Sleepy Dragon. Pretty much the entire taunt package ready to play, and Gilgamesh has absolutely no answers for this. Both Stonehill Defender have been played, no way to pull a second Tarim, and that is just gonna be the game. Gilgamesh looking for any sort of out he could possibly get, but I just don't see it. Gonna try and survive one turn longer, but between this board and even additional burst from UI or branching paths for attack, this is just very, very over.
Speak your peace.
Another clean Taunt Druid game navigated by Tuan. Seems to have a lot of experience with this deck and is able to pull off even some wins against unfavored matchups like the odd Paladin. And so for Tuan, that leaves only his Miracle Rogue in the running, and that seems like it's the deck that is going to struggle the most against Gilgamesh's lineup, because Gilgamesh has got also a Hunter and an odd Rogue remaining. But it ain't called Miracle Rogue for nothing. It can pull off what seems like the impossible, even against some highly unfavored matchups. So Tuan, having showed some very clean play with the deck so far, I expect that he could get at least one win against any of these three decks from Gilgamesh. And he should be well positioned to be one of the leaders in the Southeast Asian region group. So Faldori Strider already kept, of course, in the hand, having Backstab and Fan of Knives. Quite useful to deal with the early pressure from the Paladin. But oftentimes the Paladin just has too much refill in the form of just its hero power, and the Rogue only has the two Fan of Knives to really deal with those efficiently, so more often than not, the Paladin gets the win in this matchup. Tuan with the preemptive dagger attack here, probably setting up for a Fan of Knives clear. Either that or a clear with Backstab and SI onto the next minion that is played.
Reporting for duty.
Fan of Knives, while a very powerful tool in the matchup, having two in hand, I wouldn't have really hated him playing one of them, but this is also a very decent solution to the early board from Gilgamesh. Tuan has seized control of the board and can play Faldori's Strider on curve the next turn. Gilgamesh would have loved to have had the Corridor Creeper a little bit earlier on, but he's still in a pretty good spot.
Welcome to my world.
Purifier's Maul and Blessing of Might. Or rather, Lost in the Jungle plus the Divine Shield is very, very annoying for the Rogue to deal with. Barring a prep draw from Tuan, these minions are going to survive at least one more turn. Alright, and I really like the play from Gilgamesh going for the face here, realizing that if he trades into the Valkyrie Strider, he's essentially just giving up free damage because it's quite easy for the rogue to get past a Magma Rager without Divine Shield. So it's gonna be the Fan of Knights coming out now. Tuan really hoping for the spiders to be close to the top of the deck. Shiv off the top, a very welcome draw to make sure that Tuan doesn't have to take the damage. And getting a spider off the top, hugely relevant. Tuan is making the comeback. The refill is looking a little bit lighter for Gilgamesh. He can go for a real cheap quarter creeper, Dharmal and Hero Power. Or quarter creeper, Dharmal and Divine Favor to maximize his draw, but I really like going for more board presence here because he had just seen a Fan of Knives and also because he has a Purifier's Maul in hand.
Reporting for duty.
So the name of the game for Tuan here is to try and keep drawing to get into those spiders. He is in a decent spot here. He can play Fan of Knives, even though it's not clearing too many things. Alright, also going for Henchclan Thug makes some sense. The board is not too threatening yet from Gilgamesh, although this Divine Favor reload is gonna be really punishing.
Speak your peace.
Gilgamesh can clear the Henchclan Thug with double trades and Purifier's Maul down the spider, and once again sees back control of the board. Good ordering from him to draw first there to make sure that this quarter creeper in hand gets the maximum discounts possible.
Reporting for duty.
Thalnos Fan. The spell power buff is not hugely relevant, although it allows Tuan to clear off the Dharmal as well. And Tuan really needing to pick up an Auctioneer and stat. I expect him to just expend one of these Eviscerates on the Quarter Creeper. It is a tough decision though, because between the two of those Eviscerates and the Thalnos buff, it's 10 damage. And it could make it so that one Leroy draw could seal the game because Shadow Step is already in hand. So with that in mind, Tuan instead goes for the Sap. I can definitely respect that, although Gilgamesh still has a fully discounted Quarter Creeper in hand. Phantom Militia looks like it's going to be the pick again. A good way of generating value where there was no value before.
Reporting for duty.
The light protects me.
Gilgamesh choosing not to give Tuan the free draw. I like it. And because Tuan took that stance of saving the Eviscerates, I do think he might want to cash them in now and then go for the trade with the Thalnos to get the card draw.
I wonder.
Halt! Who goes there?
Right, he chooses not to use the second Eviscerate on face yet, which signals to me that Tuan is still holding out for an Auctioneer draw, which is fair because you're more likely to draw one of your two Auctioneers than your one Leroy. So he's not setting up for the lethal, but stalling up to the point where he can get the more conventional win condition for the Miracle Rogue, which is just to draw into as many spiders as quickly as possible. For Gilgamesh, though, pretty lucky that those key cards are not in hand at all for Tuan, so he is free to just keep developing. Turn looks like double Phantom Militia plus Corridor Creeper, setting up, I believe, a 2-turn lethal.
Reporting for duty.
Okay, Silverhand Recruits makes sense, of course, because level up is in hand. It's actually not quite a 2-turn lethal yet, unless he were to draw a second Blessing of Might.
So many options.
So Tuan, really unfortunate that he has not picked up Auctioneer just yet, and now he's forced to use Eviscerate and SI7 for removal. And again, each turn that Tuan spends doing small removal, the more time Gilgamesh has just to chip away at the health total. And it looks like this is gonna end in Gilgamesh's favor one way or another. Even if Auctioneer were to be drawn off the top here, I believe it would be too late. Both Eviscerates have been used and one Sap as well, so I don't think there's any way Tuan can clear enough of this board. And even if he gets a board full of spiders, the damage coming off the on the backswing would be way too much. Although, if Tuan's gonna try it, he better start now. Starting with a prep, okay. Yeah, I guess because the SI7 hasn't attacked yet. Yeah, the way that the cards were shuffled for Tuan's deck, it just didn't work out. Auctioneer was a little bit too far down, and so Gilgamesh pulls off the win. That's not to say that the matchup wasn't favored for Gilgamesh, though. Odd Paladin generally has a good time against Miracle Rogue. And Gilgamesh still has a long way to go. He's got to win with his own Odd Rogue and this mid-range Hunter, and Tuan still has 2 more chances to win the whole series, so we cannot count Gilgamesh as the winner yet. Taking a look at the Odd Rogue build from Gilgamesh, he has 1 Ironbeak Owl. Not too relevant in the Miracle Rogue matchup, but I guess that's kept in without banning Q block in mind. Also quite good against a world with Taunt Druids and such. He's got double Blink Fox, which is becoming more and more usual in Odd Rogue builds. As for the mid-range Hunter, that's a deck that is not all that well represented in this tournament, but at least one other player brought it, I believe Goatee from Mongolia, and I think it should have a pretty decent chance against Miracle Rogue. Just the fact that Bear Shark is not able to be removed by Eviscerates or Sap makes it very, very scary. Speaking of Bear Shark, there it is. That has got to be a keep for Gilgamesh. He'd love to draw into some of his early game though. The hand for Tuan not looking too shabby either. He'd love to have an SI7 agent to eventually deal with his Bear Shark along with a dagger attack. No such luck, but he has the next best thing, which is Hench Clan Thug. Looks like Animal Companion's probably the pick here for me. As Gilgamesh, you just want to have the most curve as possible. Freezing Trap is a consideration because next turn you're probably locked into playing a secret anyway, and Explosive Trap doesn't do all that much against Miracle Rogue, so yeah, with that in mind, Gilgamesh goes for it. So this is Insurance against Hench Clan Thug for the turn after. And it looks like Bear Shark is going to wreak havoc against Tuan. All those backstabs, Eviscerate, and Shiv are not going to do jack against this monstrosity of a beast. SI7 the agent coming into hand. That provides Tuan with his much needed answer for the Bear Shark. But I'm not sure if he's willing to expend the coin to use it this turn. However, if he doesn't do it this turn, Gilgamesh can get the Houndmaster buff and thus put the Bear Shark out of range of SI7 Dagger, and that could pretty much dispel the end of the game. So Tuan has a big decision to make. Does he play around the Houndmaster or not? If he gives up the coin this turn, I don't think it's a huge deal even though you're floating 1 mana because he has so many combo activators anyway. And Tuan realizes this, goes for the winning play, and is going to be hugely rewarded because the Houndmaster is now stranded in hand for Gilgamesh. Okay, at least our Malaysian player has picked up something to do this turn, along with, I guess, playing Explosive Trap just because, or even Hero Power. At least the Freezing Trap is there to guarantee that the Razor Maw doesn't just die straight up to a minion trade. And in Gilgamesh's mind, as long as he can stick 1 beast for the Houndmaster, he should be in a good spot. What he doesn't know is that Tuan has double backstab though, so already I think Gilgamesh is looking in a really rough spot. Just from this one heads up play of coining the SI7 agent, not afraid to float mana, but Tuan realizing how he can lose in this matchup and whether his hand could expend the coin or not, and it definitely could with all these other 0 cost spells in hand. Tuan first testing for the Wandering Monster, realizing that's not it. Next test for Freezing Trap, I suppose. He's not too upset about losing the SI7 agent because he's still got a real decent play here. And Gilgamesh, this is just looking really sad. Darmol plus Houndmaster gives Gilgamesh something to do at the very least, but Tuan has so many different ways of answering this. Sap plus Hench Clan Thug gives Tuan full command of the board. And Rexar is not enough to clear it. So Gilgamesh, okay, Eagle Horn Bow, Dire Mole, and Hero Power. The board is once again Gilgamesh's, but the swing potential is very high for Tuan. And Gilgamesh, as the hunter on turn 6, you do not want to see the rogue health above the 20 mark. I do think that it was Tuan's one play of coining the SI7 agent, even though it floated a mana, that is winning him this entire game. Can't say it's over yet because Gilgamesh in this spot can play the Rexar now. I don't think he can assume that he can get there with just the hero powers because he doesn't have minions. Yes, he has kill command and bow charges, but man, 19 still a lot, and Tuan can turn up the heat very soon with the draw of this Faldore Strider.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Gilgamesh, by not playing Rexar last turn, I think has very much telegraphed what his plan will be, which is just to maximize this steady shot hero power and eventually try to get Tuan down to the range of 8 health where he can end the game with an Eagle Horn Bow plus Beast buffed kill command. That is very far off though, it's 6 more hero powers away. So I think Gilgamesh has to realize it's gotta be Rexar now. With one explosive trap, he can perhaps make that, instead of 6 turns away, 5 turns away? But yeah, that is still forever. So much time for the rogue to develop and eventually outpace the hunter. So Tuan can now activate the explosive trap with 2 minions that still survive it. Frothing Berserker was once a very, very feared minion. Such is not the case in the face of Backstab SI though. Backstab SI and then Shadow Step Edwin can be played as well. Okay, also just Auctioneer is fine. Any number of ways that Tuan can deal with this. Suppose the only thing Tuan had to be scared of was extending too far into Unleash the Hounds. He's not done that though. And the game will be ending very soon. Gilgamesh has pretty much the best Rexar he could ask for at this point available to him, but he would have to kill command the Auctioneer along with it. Oh, sorry, he can just bow down the Auctioneer. Gilgamesh considering whether it's worth it to even attack the Auctioneer, because now he has 3 bow charges and a kill command in hand. So it might be that he actually just goes for hero power, steady shot, and then Rexar. And then just goes face with the Eagle Horn Bow. That sets up for Zombeast plus kill command. But then he won't have the steady shot hero power anymore. But you need the Rexar to get rid of the Edwin and Faldori Striders. So maybe it's actually explosive trap here. And hero power and bow. Nope. Okay, Gilgamesh is instead going for the kill command. Very scared to leave up an Auctioneer, which you can't really blame him for. But I don't think there has been a Faldori Strider played yet. He was, however, only at 13 health. So okay, and there was a Strider. That's my bad. Yeah, he was only at 13, so if you leave the Auctioneer up, you're pretty much dead to Leroy plus anything. And yeah, Tuan has double Leroy. Not quite lethal yet, but next turn for sure. I don't think there's anyone zombies that can get Gilgamesh out of this predicament. Some kind of taunt and or lifesteal rush. Yeah, those are not what he wants to see. The Bear Shark coming back to hunt Gilgamesh. If only it had stuck on turn 3, but Tuan saw through that, did not let the wastage of the coin get to him, and I think that was the turn that he actually that was the most important turn in the game. So Gilgamesh has to see that there is no way out now. He can play double secrets to try and stall, but Tuan will definitely play around those efficiently. You're not going to run a Leroy into an explosive trap. if the Wandering Monster pulls a large taunt. Still don't think it's enough. Alright, and then the explosive trap goes off. All these hunter secrets so complicated and overlapping with each other. And then the Venom Strike trap. And that is just gonna be the game with Leroy Jenkins. Very well played to Twan, pulling out some more wins with matchups that seemed very unfavorable. He was running slower decks and ran into a bunch of aggressive lineups from his opponents so far, but a bunch of clean play and very smart decision making. Again, I can't stop praising that coin SI play just to get rid of the Bear Shark. That was absolutely vital in him taking this match, and throughout the whole series he was very consistent, so well played to Twan. Congratulations, and that is not the last we'll be seeing of Gilgamesh though, because this is a round robin format, so each of the players in each region will be facing each other. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next matches.
Welcome back everybody to the Road to the Asian Games 2018. We're in the regional qualifiers, and now we're going to be looking at the group stage of Southeast Asia. We have Caius going up against Gilgamesh, and you can see already it is a conquest, it is best of 5, and we have had 2 decks already banned away. Druid disappearing from Gilgamesh, and Warlock disappearing from Caius. Caius from Singapore and Gilgamesh from Malaysia. And now Gilgamesh is a name that I do recognise from the APAC scene, and I have certainly seen it crop up here and there. On the other side for Caius, top 16 HCT Sydney, one of his accolades, and of course he qualified for HCT Sydney as well, so achieving that in the tour stop is nothing to be sniffed at. But we are going to just jump straight into this one. As you can see, Caius has Shaman, Rogue, and Hunter available, starting this game with Shaman, which is a Shudderwalk Shaman. And for Gilgamesh, he has Rogue, Hunter, and Paladin. Beginning with his Hunter, which is a mid-range Hunter, rather so than the ever-popular Recruit Hunter. It does pop up quite often at the moment.
We have turned our curse
A matchup that...
strength.
excuse me, I've said that this is a Shadowwalk Shaman, and that's just because I saw Hagatha. It's an even Shaman. I take everything I said back. An even Shaman makes this matchup very different. I was about to explain how Shadowwalk Shaman is good, blah 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 blah, but forget that. Let's start anew. Even Shaman is really good against Mid Hunter. A very good win rate, generally across online statistics. Even Hunter just struggles to keep up with the amount of pressure that the Even Shaman can put onto the board. There are instances where, like this, Gilgamesh has been able to get secrets early on. He has both spellstones in hand. So he might be able to overwhelm Caius here. But when you look at this new kind of elemental version of Even Shaman and the battle cries that it does have, the impact they can have onto the board out of the hand is absolutely insane. And this Corpse Taker on 4 is going to be extremely difficult for Gilgamesh to deal with. Maybe you'll hope like a Freezing Trap will hit it, but might be coining out Flanking Strike here. Alternatively, could just play Bear Shark. But it is tempting to play that Freezing Trap just because of both those Spellstones available in hand. For Caius, it's really a relatively easy turn. There is some reasoning to actually just playing Direwolf Alpha just to clear off the board here, but I think Corpse Taker is just so tempting just because it's on curve, and because you haven't drawn any of those minions that is actually going to make the battle cry any worse. Alakia still being in the deck, Scalehide still being in the deck, etc, etc. Gilgamesh is going to pull the trigger on just the 3 wolves. I don't think he'll mind too much. And although this Corpse Taker is going to be able to kill 2 of the wolves, I don't think Gilgamesh will be too sad to see this turn unfold, because not too much of an impact onto the board. It's going to be next turn and the following when those fire elementals really start to, well, rain down fire. And this is why the mid-range hunter can just struggle in this matchup, because of the value of what's on offer. But there is Deathstalker Rexar, and if you want to talk value, Deathstalker Rexar does provide a lot of value. And with both Spellstones now coming out for Gilgamesh, he is really all in here, hoping that he wins the board right here, right now. Takes the value trade, thus not leaving anything else up. But that is just going to be the board now regained back again for Gilgamesh. Could Flanking Strike if he would like to, and that means he definitely keeps minions on board, because realistically Gilgamesh is the one who needs to be making the questions. He needs to be saying to Caius, alright, well, you have answers in your hand, but how long can you keep answering it for? We can see Hagatha is in hand for Caius, and at some point that's going to make a big difference as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see both Death Knights in this game. Crackling Razormaw or Houndmaster both do get a decent amount of value. Razormaw working better with the mana curve on this particular turn, but if you're thinking ahead, then maybe Houndmaster can also be considered. As a reminder, there are open deck lists, so the competitors know what their opponents are playing, they know what they have to mulligan around, and they know what they're going to be banning. Caius had his Warlock banned away, which was an even Warlock, and Gilgamesh had his Druid banned away, which was a Malygos Druid. Gilgamesh getting that Freezing Trap off, and he'll be fairly happy with that result. A big target, but that does mean that there is another Battle Cry in the hand of Caius yet again. That 3 damage does seem to be doing wonders against the minions that Gilgamesh eventually gets on the board. Flanking Strike and Deadly Shot available now, so this is going to be a really nice turn for Gilgamesh. But Hagatha is going to reset to a decent point. get rid of these 2 wolves, and then follow-up turns you have Lich King just sat there waiting on his throne, ready to ruin people's day. Fire Elemental as well can deal with whatever's going to come on the board. And it's kind of a frustrating position for Gilgamesh to be in, because he is just, at this point, throwing things on the board and having them removed turn after turn. And you just kind of have to guess what is and isn't in your opponent's hand. And it seems like Caius has had the answer to everything right now. I do apologise if I am mispronouncing the name Caius as well. I did look it up, I did do some research, see if I could find any VODs, but unfortunately I couldn't find anything in the space of time I had. So we'll just offer an apology just in case, but yeah, I'm English, we get things wrong sometimes. Forked Lightning off of Hagatha, and this is the thing, so much value now is available every minion that's played. I mean, Shaman spells aren't great. I think we all know this. We've all got to that point where we've been playing minion after minion and just getting useless spells, zap after zap. I mean, zap's not useless, but you know what I mean. It's situational. And some of the spells that you could be getting, you never seem to. Gilgamesh is just going to go wide here and keep piling on the pressure. You got to think, if Caius at any point gets, Kalamos. I was going to say, if he gets any sort of AOE, then he's going to be in a great spot. And Kalamos is a potential AOE, is one of the options you can choose, but he just needs to play an elemental first, and that's why Alakir is going to probably be put down here, just to make sure that next turn Kalamos can get that value. And speak of zap, there it is. And actually, it can get rid of a minion. So I think you do take it. And then Gilgamesh out of everything now. Oh, the kill command works out nicely. Allows Alakir to be taken out and more face damage to be pushed. But Gilgamesh does need to make a decision here. Can I actually win this game with this current hero power? Can I keep pushing enough damage? Or do I just need to use Deathstalker Rexar now and start building a beast? I imagine the answer is probably the latter. You do probably need to build a beast, because the amount of value your opponent has is going to be much higher than yours. And so he's gone down the route of saving back the kill command, but using the Deathstalker Rexar Battle Cry just to clear everything off of the board. Also leaves a nice tidy 2 mana left, so you can build a beast, and it means you can go as high as you want with this mana cost. Ironbeak Owl could come in use. Stampeding Kodo also. And anything with charge is good, so I'm not entirely surprised that Stone Tusk Boar was picked. And you see, now that board clear isn't as good from Kalamos. You'd probably expect a different option, and it is just going to be a heal to the face. Spirit Echo there as well. Look at the amount of value that's in the hand. I've probably used the word value far too many times so far this game, but it's hard not to when you look at a hand like that. So Zombeasts versus just general beefy minions plus spells every turn. What do you fancy? I think I'm fancying Caius's hand, but this Vicious Fledgling is a bit of a nuisance. Unfortunately, it's not going to stay alive. And Caius isn't going to be tricked by any sort of secret foul plays. Could use the Fire Elemental here just to kill off the Cobra if you wanted to, and then the Eel to kill off the Hound, and then suddenly you have board control. Forked Lightning works as well. Caius does probably want to get some of these big minions on board. Corpse Taker without Wind Fury now because Alakir's disappeared, but the Spirit Echo is going to do the job and probably be close to finishing this game off, unless we see some really impactful minions come out of this Builder Beast. And I think Mid Hunter is an interesting choice to bring to this tournament. I was expecting more, if it was going to be Hunter, I was expecting more Recruit Hunter, but Mid Hunter has had a lot of success in tournaments and ladder. It does seem to be the number 2 pick. On the other side for Kaios, I mean, you can completely understand why even Shaman is being brought. It's showed its dominance in several different tournaments now. I wouldn't say it's the favourite over Shutterwalk Shaman, but it does a job, and it looks like it's doing the job now as well, with Lich King now arriving on the board. Gilgamesh is going to have to use this Zombeast and Kill Command, potentially, just to clear it up. Could use his face if he wanted to, but the fact he's starting his turn with a hero power, building a beast, means he's looking for other answers. Poisonous and Rush is really good with the Hydra. This is a really, really filthy turn, actually. You gotta remember, those minions, or some of those minions, are gonna be going back to hand for Kaya, so even more so gonna be able to answer back on the board. Unfortunately, he doesn't get his Lich King back, which is a shame. And all the meanwhile, yes, okay, Gilgamesh is surviving at this point. Credit to him. You see it happen a lot when the Build a Beast happens, but with Army of the Dead now being played, it's very difficult when you have Build a Beast to try and answer a wide board. The Hydra that was played was probably one of the best answers you can have. And that's was only a board of 3 minions. I'm going to struggle even more. Now it's 5, potentially 6, depending on what comes out of this spell. He's seen 1 Unleash the Hounds, potentially even 2. So he's not going to be too concerned about going wide. And yeah, I think you're building again. None of those minions are really helping. I guess King Mukla, the bananas aren't going to be given to your opponent, or at least only 1 is. Charge again, though. How often do we see it? Charge and Rush, Lifesteal all popping up, and that's why the Deathstalker Rexar can be so insane. But even charging here, like even Gilgamesh, he's going to play it and then he's saying, actually, well, what am I doing with it? Are you Zombeast and then Hound Mastering it and then killing off the Sea Giant? It's one of those games where you're not conceding because you haven't lost yet, right? And you still think there is a tiny % chance that luck goes your way and maybe you build really good beasts, maybe your opponent slips up, makes a mistake, runs out of resources. But because of things like Spirit Echo that we've already seen, because he's seen minions go back to hand via Freezing Trap, I think Gilgamesh should know that his back is really against the wall at this point. Yeah, and with Kalamos in hand, I'm not surprised that now you just play an Elemental, clear the board, continue to go face, and then you have the option next turn to use Kalamos to actually just provide lethal. Get rid of some of these cards in your hand, and by the looks of it, Kais is probably going to go 1-0 up here with his Even Shaman. As I said right at the start of the game, it is a fairly heavily favoured matchup, certainly on ladder for Even Shaman, and even in tournaments we've seen it had its success against Mid-Range Hunter as well. We've got to think, what could have gone differently for Gilgamesh? Could he have played another secret earlier on to get 4 wolves instead of 3 on both of his spellstones? Would that have made a difference? Probably not, but it's all things worth considering, and probably what he would watch back and actually look, how could he improve his chances of winning, as Caius does get the final blow and will go 1-0 up in this best of 5 conquest tournament. Of course, we are in the group stages at the moment of the regional qualifiers. It is the road to the Asian Games. The Asian Games 2018, might I add. Just in case you didn't know. We're in 2018, that's the year. And as you can see, there's a lot of pride on the line as well, representing where you're from. Singapore, Malaysia, both represented here. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with that start from Caius. He played that game very sensibly, very patiently. Knew exactly how he wanted to approach it. Played around secrets well. And unfortunately for Gilgamesh there, he just really struggled from the get-go. But game number 2, Caius is now going to move over to his mid-range hunter. Here was me slandering mid-range hunter being brought to the tournament, but there's 2 players bringing it now at least. On the other side, Gilgamesh is going to go to the Old Faithful, the Old Paladin. I've got to say, I imagine a lot of people try and approach tournaments to target Old Paladin, because Old Paladin is so popular that you've got to expect almost every lineup to be bringing it. And I say almost because Caius isn't bringing it, but that would lead me to believe he's probably got the tools to actually deal with it with other decks. But not really this one. I believe Old Paladin is mid-hunter's worst matchup, statistically. Mainly because even if you get your explosive traps, even if you get your Unleash the Hounds, your opponent is just bombarding you with those Silverhand recruits. The hero power just outvalues Caius completely. With both Fungalmancers in hand, as well as both Corridor Creepers, you round that up with a Vine Cleaver, and it's already looking really good for Gilgamesh. There are games like this where you can look at a hand and you can say, alright, well, I can feel in a confident spot. As that chest just got a little bit angrier and just gained attack. Not the worst Wandering Monster that Gilgamesh could have seen though. Yes, okay, it's going to be able to trade into the Dire Mole, but there certainly are more scary options from Wandering Monster. It's an amazing card, an amazing secret. So difficult to play around sometimes. You just have to put your faith in Lady Luck rather than the light, like Uther does. Now there are 2 ways to try and deal with this board. Caius can say, alright, I'm going to play my explosive trap and I'm going to hope that he runs his minions into me, but I think that's a bad idea. I would imagine that Unleash the Hounds is a better way. But with both Unleash the Hounds now available, it means you can be a little bit more patient. And sometimes what you see with Old Paladin, when there is a secret in play, they will just hold off. Or they can hold off. But because there are 2 Corridor Creepers available in hand, Gilgamesh doesn't mind at all just saying, alright, well, I'm just going to get rid of this trap. If it's freezing, I don't care. If it's explosive, then I get to put 2 2/5s on the board anyway. And now the Unleash the Hounds doesn't look so great. And the mana curve isn't fantastic either. Might be a coin turn if you really want to be using your mana effectively, but coining out a freezing trap doesn't seem optimal when there's 1/1s on the board, so you're just going to have to do what you can there. And now the Fungalmancers are going to start to ruin Caius's day. Yes, okay, Unleash the Hounds and explosive traps can deal with 1/1s, but how do you deal with 4 7s? Huffer can, but that's not a Huffer. Misha will at least put some sort of a wall in the way, but with Fungalmancer number 2 ready, waiting in the wings to be called in, to be tagged in, and a Blessing of Might there as well. Gilgamesh in so much control. And this is why this matchup is so favoured, really, for the Odd Paladin. It's why it's one of the worst matchups for the mid hunter, because there isn't really that many comeback mechanics. Rexar can be one of them. Explosive Trap and Unleash can be as well, as I said, but it's how many times can you answer the constant refuel of the board. With Maul now being pulled, and it's a Divine Shield one as well, as this has just been the perfect game for Gilgamesh. Obviously, you can't influence draws as a player, you can only play what is in front of you, but when it goes this well, you're certainly going to be sat there smiling, and it puts you in good spirits. Hearthstone, I heavily believe to be a mentally heavy, challenging game. If your head is not in the right place with Hearthstone, you can very easily misplay, you can make the wrong turns, you can think the game's against you, not make optimal decisions. But if you're in good spirits, if you're feeling good about the game, usually you're pretty happy with yourself and you're a bit more calm and collected, and you actually analyze situations just that little bit better. I mean, how many times have we seen players take a break after several months of grinding through ladder and going to tournaments and tour stops and just saying enough is enough, I need to just take a few weeks off, just chill out, and then go back to it, get a better mental approach. As these Unleash the Hounds, probably both are going to come out here just to try and deal with some of this board. I don't think it's really going to matter. With a 7/7 Corridor Creeper already just sat there. Vine Cleaver as well, Fungalmancer's there. And Blessing of Might, and that will just win the game for Gilgamesh. Blessing of Might plus Fungalmancer does the job. And we're going to be tying this one up 1-1 then. Both mid-hunters struggling, but it was two of the worst matchups for mid-hunter. As I said, Odd Paladin probably the worst, and even Shaman is probably a close second. So maybe it's going to be a series of who can actually find a win with mid-range hunter. Someone's going to have to. But is it going to be able to find wins against anything else? Looking at the other decks across the board for these two players, Odd Rogue is available for Caius as well. But he still has to get a win with his Hunter. And for Gilgamesh, he does also have a Rogue. And it is also an Odd Rogue. Very similar lists, the Odd Rogue lists. One has Captain Greenskin, that's in Gilgamesh's list. The other doesn't, the other has a Scalebane. But other than that, they look almost identical. I guess there's a veteran in there, but anyway, we don't really need to talk about Odd Rogue. I guess we should be talking about mid-range hunter. I was saying who's going to be able to find a win. Well, someone is going to now in this mirror. As I just look across the lists, they're looking fairly identical as well. If not exactly. Yes, exactly the same list. So this is literally a mirror. And in the mirror, you are looking for spellstones. You want your secrets, you want your spellstones, and Gilgamesh is currently winning that. But it's not be all and end all. Because if you can get some big chunky minions on the board, if you can manipulate your own secrets, then you are also in a decent spot. But maybe Caius has to play Razor more just naked here. Or he could just go Hero Power Trap. But he doesn't want to offer up easy traps. Gilgamesh wins the race to the first spellstone. It is just going to be a 3 wolf spellstone. Eagle Hornbow is a good pickup, allows him to deal with one of these wolves nice and early. But already Caius so far behind. does have Unleash the Hound, so Explosive Trap, if he can get it to be triggered, the next turn he should be able to clean everything up. And by waiting, not hitting into one of these 3/3s, maybe that is a little telltale sign to Gilgamesh, as he is just going to test for secrets. Wandering Monster, always pretty scary. That's not the best in the world, because you've got to remember your health total is something to be considered in this mirror as well, because there is the ability from your opponent just to absolutely smash you down. Kill commands come out, and suddenly you can be burst down from, well, like 15, I guess, depending on what's on board. Is the Houndmaster used? No, Bear Shark is, so these Hounds are going to be able to clear up quite comfortably, and with the 5/1 being left on the board as well, that means Caius is going to have a nice turn next turn. But you know, if this becomes a race, despite the fact that Gilgamesh got the first Spellstone, now with Kill Command being in hand as well, there is real potential for Caius to actually just take this game out racing his opponent, and getting that extra 5 damage in as well. You can now get 4 from Unleash, you've got 3 in hand, and Kill Command as well. There we have it. So much damage available. I said it was scary. That's what Kill Command can do, and the one secret that was in play was the Venom Strike trap, which just did nothing. A freezing trap would have been amazing for Gilgamesh to have. Even if he had played the explosive trap, but he was greedy, Gilgamesh was there, and allowed Caius to just run out of control with all that damage. Gilgamesh, he felt secure on his life total, and I said he probably shouldn't have. Anyway, we're going to be going into a game 4, and we're going into a game 4 with Caius 2-1 up. Moving over to his Odd Rogue to finish the game. Now, of course, an Odd Rogue mirror could go either way. Obviously, it's statistically a 50-50. It depends on what kind of differences we have in the deck, and I did say there are some there. But for Odd Rogue versus Mid Hunter, that's a very close matchup as well. Personally, in my experience playing a lot of Odd Rogue, I am comfortable against Mid-Range Hunter unless they kind of get the nuts from the start. Although Gilgamesh, last game, kind of had the nuts from the start. Two traps plus a Spellstone. But no Spellstone in sight this time. Whereas for Caius, he is on the coin, which is really important for any rogue because of activators, which is why you're going to see SI7 agent kept here. Double SI7, and more importantly, the Hench Clan Thug. One of the most brutal cards that is available for Rogue, and one of the reasons why both Miracle Rogue and Odd Rogue are just so powerful, because if you can get him out after daggering up on 3, it can be extremely difficult for your opponent to deal with. Now this is always an interesting situation of how do you approach this trap. You do have a 2-attack dagger, there are minions that cost 3 that do have 2 health, but you don't want to risk giving them something that is just going to be able to batter you down. Now you kind of want to save the coin for Valspine here. But if you just play a Hench Clan Thug, it's just going to die. You could play a Tar Creeper, which does trade very well into board. So obviously Deckhand, Coin, SI7 agent is certainly a viable option. But I'd be tempted just to keep it for the Valspine. So maybe I'd be going for a Tar Creeper in this scenario. And the man from Singapore doth agree. But it's going to be the Houndmaster, of course, stopping that easy trade. But you can kill off this 6-2 with your face or a deckhand. You can actually clear the whole board if you deckhand into SI7 agent. Looks like we're getting this Valspine out this turn. Get the value now, get ahead on the board, which I don't mind. I'm okay with it. The way you do win this matchup as the rogue is being ahead of the hunter, not letting them be the hunter, basically. You don't want to be the huntee, the hunted. Although, alright, so he's kind of changed his mind here. And he took 2 damage unnecessarily by going down that route. And the flanking strike just answers back onto the board. But now this is where we might see Hench Clan Thug come out, because you can get it onto the board and you can make it bigger than what is currently on the board. Or you could be coining out Firefly and the Valspine now. Kaius just really has to get ahead, whatever he does. And it is going to be, alright, coining out the SI7 agent, using your dagger, this is also perfectly fine. Still leaving that Wandering Monster up, which is good. You want to be able to attack into face. If you're confident it's Wandering Monster, you're attacking into face when you've got something that's big enough to be able to deal with it. Although now with Freezing Trap being there as well, it makes things a little bit more awkward, and Gilgamesh might be tempted to play this Freezing Trap. It depends. Do you go for the Huffer roll on Animal Companion to try and take this Clan Thug off the board completely? Or do you Freezing Trap and hope that the Clan Thug's just going to be sent back home anyway? And this could be a completely different game if there were if there was at least one Spellstone available for Gilgamesh. Valspine Slayer pretty much useless now. I think maybe you are testing for the secrets because this turn is pretty awkward in terms of what you've actually got. I think you test with the secret with your face. Wandering Monster is going to come out. That's not terrible, but it's not great either. It's an in-betweener. And then I think you're just leaving the Hench Clan on the board now. And you go as wide as you can with your little pesky minions, with the Firefly, with the Argent Squire. And then you'll be able to run one of those into the Freezing Trap next turn. Or at least you'd hope so anyway. Of course, something like an Unleash the Hounds could maybe spoil that. But no Unleash available. There is an Explosive Trap, but of course Freezing Trap would be triggered first. And you are a little bit worried about this Clan Thug. He's only going to keep growing. Like a young boy eating his ready break. Instead, is a dagger that is building him up. Weird analogy, I know. That's all I have. And speaking of not having much, Gilgamesh doesn't really have much to do here either, and he is just going to go down the aggressive route. He's saying, alright, I don't think I can deal with your board anymore, so I'm just going to race you. Maybe he'll have the luck that Kaius had last turn, find one of those kill commands, but with Leroy Jenkins being picked up as well, and Cold Blood in hand. A race is on, and a race that does, in theory, favour the hunter if you think about what is available and the hero power, but just the fact that you look at the board and you look at the hand, I've got to say a race probably favours Kaius. And if he does take it, that will be the series, and he'll be taking it 3-1.
So many options.
As I said, I do recognise Gilgamesh's name, but not as many accolades to his Hearthstone career as Caius. But both been there or thereabouts in APAC tournaments. As Caius does play into the explosive trap, so he is down to just 12. And you've got to bear in mind there's 5 damage available just from hand. Could be 9 with Animal Companion. If you get Huffer into Wind Fury from Crackling Razormaw, there is potential for lethal this turn. But if you don't find that lethal, you are just dead. Oh, Deathstalker Rexar. No, it looks like Gilgamesh is just going to go for it. Does he find Huffer? No, he doesn't, and that's going to be the game. Even if you find Taunt. No, okay, you could find Taunt. That might be able to save you, but there's no Taunt there either. Caius is going to take the series here. 3-1. Unfortunately for Gilgamesh, he was unable to find a win with his mid-range hunter, losing 3 games with it. And ultimately, we have to look at that mirror. The mid-range hunter mirror, which Caius was able to take, where maybe Gilgamesh was just a little bit too greedy. Didn't really focus on his life total enough and allow Caius just to pass through and get the chance to take on the mid-range hunter with Zod Rogue. But a good series for Caius. Congratulations to him as he gets the victory. 3-1. Welcome back everybody to the road to the Asian Games, the regional qualifiers. And we're going to be in the group stage of Southeast Asia. We've got Tuan versus Caius. Again, I'm going to apologise if I'm getting the pronunciations wrong, but I'm trying my best. My name is Dan Gaskin, and I will be casting this one again. It's a best of 5 conquest, as you probably know. As you can see quite clearly on the screen, Shaman is banned away from Caius, and Warrior is banned away from Tuan. Leaving Warlock, Rogue and Hunter for Caius, and Warlock, Druid and Rogue for Tuan. Representing their regions, of course, Tuan is from Vietnam and Caius from Singapore. Always good when you're kind of where you're from is included. I think it adds a little bit of extra pressure as well, because you're trying to do it for from where you're from where you grew up. A little bit of difference in playing age, 26 and 21. Kind of 24, 25 I think is the average. But just looking through the deck lists then, so the Warrior that was banned away was a Quest Warrior. And the Shaman that was banned away was, I believe, an Even Shaman. Yes, it was. So Even Shaman taken away, and Caius feeling that his lineup doesn't do particularly well against Quest Warrior. Quest Warrior does do pretty well against decks like Odd Paladin, but Caius doesn't have that. And I guess maybe he feels like it does too well against Odd Rogue, for example. But game number 1 now underway between these two players. And we are going to start with Taunt Druid from Tuan and the Odd Rogue from Caius. A kind of even matchup, I'd say. Entirely can depend on how quickly the Taunt Druid can ramp up. If you get to turns 7, 8 and 9, really, if you've got the coin, etc., you are probably going to win this Taunt Druid. But there is an Iron Beak Owl available, and there are Vital Spines as well from the Odd Rogue, so there is a chance that they can just generate a lot of early pressure. If they get a Clan Thug, for example, they can kind of spiral out of control. And maybe the Taunt Druid might struggle, but if the Taunt Druid, we can see Oaken Summons is there, providing there's 2 Ironwood Golems available, which there are, usually there are, I was just double checking. And Tuan is in a really good spot. Does have a Wrath available, 2 Wraths in his list, so more of a anti-aggro list, I want to say, with both Wraths being available. There's also an Ultimate Infestation in there as well, which I find interesting. I've seen a lot of lists of Taunt Druid that doesn't run Ultimate Infestation. And Wrath is going to be used just to get rid of the Vicious Fledgling, which does make sense. And you don't want to let the Fledgling get out of control. That is one way how you are going to lose the matchup if you can't answer it. If it becomes untargetable or has too much health, you're really going to struggle. Even if you get those walls up a little bit, it will be too late. With Oaken Summons there, or, I mean, to be fair, if Twan got something like a, if you got any sort of mana gain here, a Nourish would be fantastic for him. You just get closer to, like, just dropping a Lich King onto the board. Because even though it is scary, just putting those big minions on the board against Rogue that can silence it, can just destroy it with a Varspine, knowing that you've got the potential at some point to use Hadronox to get all of those taunt minions back, can just be overwhelming for your opponent. And even though, as I said, it statistically is slightly favoured for Odd Rogue, according to online ladder statistics, in my own personal experience and from what I've seen, I certainly think this is actually closer just to being 50-50, if not in favour of the Taunt Druid. You just have so much value available. Swipe now can deal with a decent amount of this board. Make sure that there's not too much pressure or too much damage. You could just drop an Ironwood Golem just to put a little wall in the way again. You've got Branching Paths as a backup to just get either gain armor if you want to just be able to get out of reach, which you might have to if you look at Caius having Leroy Jenkins available. But also, Branching Paths, one of them, such a versatile card. I mean, yes, okay, it's got several options, but it can be used to search through your deck, it can be used to stay alive, or it can be used to provide lethal. It is such an awesome card. And Twan is going to take the first opportunity he can to get a big minion on the board, but Iron Beak Owl can silence it, which means that a lot of damage can be pushed through. 14 damage available can be pushed through. Make that 16 with the hero power and then 18 with the deckhand. Frostmourne being picked up isn't Death and Decay, which would have been nice. Can get rid of plenty that's on the board. But it's whether Kaya says, actually, I can answer this Lich King right now with what I've got on the board. Keep back the Iron Beak Owl for a potential burst of lethal finish with Leroy Jenkins. But that's what Twan will want. Twan will want Caius to be trading in here and not going face to try and stall and give him a little bit more time. But no, Caius is going to be saying, alright, I'm taking this damage now whilst I still can. But that does mean that if he doesn't kill the Lich King, there is always potential for the Lich King to be... So what, we have a Carnivorous Cube available for Twan, but no way of killing it. Frostmourne, he hasn't got the mana to play Sleepy Dragon, so actually, yeah, this is a really bad situation for Twan. Obviously there's no Spreading Plagues available in Taunt Druid. For obvious reasons, you don't want to be resummoning beasts. So you need some way of killing your Carnivorous Cube. Can you kill it with Spellstone at some point? No. Okay, so Swipe and Branching Paths is just going to keep him alive for now. And he is going to be generating that Spellstone. So if Caius is... I mean, Caius shouldn't. But if Caius is tempted to leave the Lich King up here, then that does mean the combo is in the hand for Cube plus Spellstone to get 2 Lich Kings. But I would imagine Caius is probably going to kill it, and then next turn maybe we'll see a Sleepy Dragon or Dragon Hatcher come out, but probably Sleepy Dragon, because usually with Dragon Hatcher you're hoping to pull Sleepy Dragon, but there's only one in the list. Of course you can pull a Primordial Drake, but it's not as effective as the Sleepy Dragon. The Cube play would be the best play for Twan, mainly because it's 2 taunts that Caius has to get through rather than just a single target that could be Varspine. But I guess if Caius... The thought process for Caius out is, if I kill this off with the minions that I've got on board anyway, or if I take 8 damage, then how am I going to win this game? Where am I going to find the damage? And he is just going to go face, so that is going to go against him here. Because I would imagine, depending on what Twan draws, I would imagine this is Cube into Spellstone. You can see him hovering over it already as well. The fact you're able to take a trade first, and yep. This is now going to be difficult for Caius to get back into. And this is what I said, when you get to turn 8, turn 9, there is the ability to just get so far ahead on board with some of these massive minions. And whilst this isn't the most traditional way to win the game, often cubes are used to kill off Hadronox, for example. Against aggro, you do whatever you can to survive and you make the best play possible. And with Fungalmancer being picked up, that's not really the minion you want, so maybe you're just putting a Baku on the board. But then you're chunking down 16 damage next turn. And with more burst available for Twan from Frostmourne too.
I will silence their scream.
It looks like Twan's probably going to be going 1-0 up here. Unless anything drastic happens, but he can put another Taunt minion down.
Fluffy.
He's going to use Dragon Hatcher to pull the Primordial Drake out of the deck. By doing so, it also thins out the deck and means he's more likely to find extra cards like a second swipe. I think he's only used 1 swipe, but there's another Frostmourne available, but there's no coming back from this for Caius now. I'm sure we'll have a look just to see what's drawn, but an SI7 agent not going to help. Twan from Vietnam is going to go 1-0 up.
I give up.
And Taunt Druid's such a powerful deck right now. And it does make me question sometimes the statistics that are available for online Hearthstone games and what is favoured because of what statistics are taken from ladder. Because I really felt that that was a Taunt Druid favoured game. But I guess if the Taunt Druid had drawn poorly, then I can see why the Rogue might win there. But either way, Twan now doesn't have to use his Taunt Druid, as it is Conquest. It's done, it's dusted, he moves on, has to win with every single deck. Whereas Caius is still going to have to find a victory with this odd Rogue. He doesn't have to play it next, he could of course move over to his Hunter or his Warlock. Unfortunately, his Shaman banned away. And I say unfortunately because I feel like even Shaman is a really good deck to bring right now, but so is even Warlock. And Caius does have that available to him as well. And it isn't even Warlock that's running Skulking Geist, so it would have done fairly well against the Taunt Druid. It's not a certain win matchup, but it is anyone that has Skulking Geist against Taunt Druid has a bit of a chance. Getting rid of those naturalizers can really help. Kai is just pondering as to what he'd like to select as we jump into game number 2. And it's going to be Twan on his Miracle Rogue, going up against the Odd Rogue of Caius. Now this is a better matchup for the Odd Rogue, because you do just have more aggression. And just taking a look around online statistics would suggest it's around a 66% win rate for Odd Rogue at Legend ranks. I have a lot of friends who play... I say I have a lot of friends. I have one friend who plays a lot of Miracle Rogue. Another caster, Darrock Brown. If you don't know him, you should. I'm sure he would have a different opinion on what and who is the favourite in this match. But I mean, decent tools there. Backstab being available is good. It can clear up early pressure. Valdori's Strider, we know, is an amazing card. Not only is it putting a body, but it is the chance to be drawing those spiders onto your board as well. It's whether Twan wants to use the backstab at some point, because the Auctioneer plus backstab is so valuable. Extra card draw, we know how important that is in Miracle Rogue, but sometimes you do just have to survive as much as possible as Miracle Rogue until you get to those later turns, when then you can start to go out of control by drawing through cards and getting spiders on the board. Ballspine's going to be a big pickup as well. But Caius is going to be the first person to put a Hench Clan Thug on the board. I'd say it's one of the most important cards for Rogue in general, not just in this matchup.
Who goes there?
And Gaius is going to get really aggressive. Cold blooding here. I like this. I like the aggressive stance. No, it's not going to be easy to answer either for Tuan. You look at this hand and you wonder how he's going to get back. And he's going to have to take 5. It does mean the Clan Thug is going to stay alive. Another backstab is found, so that is really good because that means next turn backstab plus Valspine Slayer could just swing this game back for Tuan. And it looks like the Vicious Fledgling being put on the board will actually play into it perfectly as well. And depending on how comfortable Tuan is, on how much damage he wants to take here. Oh, and a spider found. So you're probably killing off the Vicious Fledgling with your 4-4, using the backstab on just the Ardent Squire, yeah, and then killing off the Thug. And then suddenly, look at this, the board's turned around and it's yours. And there's no activator for Gaius for his Valspine Slayer at the moment. And we know that because it's Odd Rogue, there isn't going to be any 0 mana spells that he can use it with either. So he's just going to have to put this Scalebane on the board. Double Cold Blood is available, as well as Leroy Jenkins. The power of Valspine Slayer if you get the activator. That was a huge draw to be able to get the second backstab. Both backstabs available. I don't care if this matchup is favoured for Odd Rogue. It is so hard to come back from a position like this. Look at this hand. Of course for Caius, he can't see the hand. And he is just going to go down the route of face. He's hoping that he can draw into a Leroy of his own, potentially. And Tuan now just hopes. He doesn't have any way of protecting himself against any burst damage. Cold Blood is there, but there's no minion to put it on.
The light protects me.
And with Leroy Jenkins double Cold Blood available, Tuan is going to take this game and he's going to go 2-0 up. It's called Miracle Rogue for a reason. Caius, I imagine it would just be head in hands at this point and say, how have I lost this game? How have I lost another favoured game? Even more so favoured this time, but I'm sure jubilation for Tuan. Such a good feeling when you hit cards like that off the top, when you see that backstab and it works in conjunction with the Valspine, and then your opponent just plays into it as well. And Caius would have been saying, alright, I've seen one backstab, how likely am I to see another? But he would have to be worried about Prep. Prep could have done a very similar job as well. Tuan 2-0 up though. Meaning he has to move to his final deck, which is a Q block. Yes, it is. I was just taking a double check. It is a Q block, and looking at what Caius has available, I guess against Q block, he may struggle. Odd Rogue is actually probably one of the better matchups for him against Q block, but we'll see what he decides to go with. And it is actually going to be the Odd Rogue, so the third game in a row for Caius with Odd Rogue, and another favoured game in theory. Mainly just because you can get all that minion presence from the start, and then your opponent really struggles to deal with those early minions, and then if something like an Ironbeak Owl is to silence a Void Lord, you're usually very, very happy. Clan Thug, Vicious Fledgling, both available for Caius, but it's that Hellfire that's been drawn by Tuan that is going to be really important to try and stop any early pressure, and Mountain Giant being found now as well. Now, sometimes against aggressive lineups, you don't get the chance to put a Mountain Giant on board. It entirely depends on how they approach the game and how aggressive they get with their minions. And Fledgling is the decision instead of the Clan Thug. And that does mean you're probably going to coin Hellfire this. That wouldn't have been possible if the Clan Thug had been played there with a dagger into the face. But now Kaya's saying, okay, yep, you've used your removal now. Defile's not going to do anything, and Twan is just going to answer as best as he can to what's on the board. There's that Iron Beak Owl I was talking about. How does Twan get back? He's already down to just 18. It's not as simple as it was for Q-Blocks. The Dark Pact Possess Lackey combo doesn't work till turn 7 now, rather than turn 6. Kaius is just going to continue to ramp up this pressure. I like saving back the Owl, of course, but you're killing off this Umbra. You know you're 100% you're killing off this Umbra. There's no way you're leaving that on the board.
So many options.
Although I guess in theory you probably could.
Choose
You know a Lackey's not going to be coming down. You know the coin's already disappeared. It is just too much of a risk. If you can kill it off now comfortably, then do it. You can also clear your board and not put any 1-drops down so that it's not as effective against Defile, but Kaius is just going to push the pressure anyway.
Who dares summon me?
Dark Pact and Godfrey disappear as Twan is just using the Doomguard to stay alive. 2, 4, 6 available, plus SI7 agent, that's 8. Kaius so close to getting his first win with this odd rogue. And he is going to use the SI7 agent just to clear off the Doomguard, rather so than sending all that damage phase. But with Iron Beak Owl in hand, he's probably pretty confident here. Doomguard drawn, Twan is going to tap, and that is going to be the game. And we are going to go to 2-1. And that's how powerful the odd rogue can be. Unfortunately for Kaius, unfortunately for Twan, he was able to find some of the early removal, but just didn't have the answer for the sheer amount of pressure for Kaius available. And finally, Kaius can move off that odd rogue. As we move over to game number 4. It's whether he wants to throw his even Warlock at the Q-Block, or whether he wants to put his mid-range Hunter to the test. Mid-range Hunter does have the ability to also generate early pressure and get through a Q-Block. Doesn't have any of those silence effects though, no Owl or any spell breakers. Instead, he is going to try his even lock, and bad news for Kaius is we can already see Skull of the Minari, and we see a Mountain Giant, and we see Spirit Singer Umbra, and we see a Doomguard available for Twan. This could get ugly, but I say that, Vulgar Homunculus is there, which is statistically one of the best cards to keep in your mulligan for even Warlock. And then both Hooked Reavers being picked up as well is great, but even Warlock can really struggle against Q-Block because of the amount of value Q-Block can have. And the thing is, the even lock kind of taps themselves so low, so they can get these Hooked Reavers, but he does need to be careful, as if a Mountain Giant does come onto the board, there is little he can do about it until turn 6, where that Siphon Soul is available. Just a pass, of course, from Twan because he can't tap. Hellfire now there as well. Oh, and I like this from Kaius. I like recognizing the fact that a Mountain Giant could come down this turn. So he is just going to toss a Doomsayer onto the board. But that does open up the possibility of just a simple coin into Skull. The perfect turn to play the Skull. And now with both Faceless Manipulators available as well, the Doomguard's going to be arriving on the board next turn. It's just a measly 4/4 Hooked Reaver is just put on the board so that something goes on. And now I think you're probably Mountain Gianting, but you could Faceless Manipulator if you really want to push face damage here. But I think Mountain Giant makes sense. It's on the mana curve. You can trade. There is a Siphon Soul that can deal with this 8/8. But then there's still a Doomguard left on the board. No second minions come out from Skull though, so it'll be a sigh of relief from Caius until he sees the Carnivorous Cube come off the top with the Dark Pact, which is going to allow for 2 more Doomguards to push face damage. Faceless Manipulator is available next turn as well. Hellfire doesn't save him. You're going to just have to put a Hooked Reaver in the way by the looks of it. But we can see a Hooked Reaver isn't going to be all that effective.
So many possibilities.
Spellstone's not going to be high enough to kill one off either. The mana just doesn't really work out, so he's actually going to... Is he thinking of Shroom Brewer plus Sun Fury Protector?
I wonder.
That's a risk as well. That just opens himself up to dying next turn if he does that, with Hellfire and Defile being available.
Almost out of time.
No, he is just going to go, he's going to put the 7/7 on the board.
I wonder.
Which I think is his best chances of staying alive. Because in theory, both Doomguards have to trade into it. But you can now use a Faceless Manipulator here. Gul'dan there as well, available. I think we're edging ever closer to the end of this series. And of course, there was no healing up, so Hellfire is lethal. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy at the end for Twant. I was so focused on Gul'dan, I completely forgot about Hellfire being available. But it's pretty good that Twant didn't, as he is going to take that game 3-1, that series. Representing Vietnam, I'm sure he'll be extremely happy with that one. Hello everybody, welcome back once again to the Road to the Asian Games 2018. It is the regional qualifiers, and we're going to be taking a look at the Southeast Asia group. It's going to be Dizdai going up against Gilgamesh. It is a best of 5 conquest with the Druid of Gilgamesh taken away and the Warlock of Dizdai taken away. Once again, my name is Dan Gaskin. It's a pleasure to be casting for you all. I'm looking forward to this matchup. A little bit of an age difference, Dizdai a little bit younger. But sometimes with age comes experience. Some of the top Hearthstone players are wise and old, but of course we have seen very successful young ones too. Shaman, Paladin and Druid available for Dizdai, and the Hunter, the Rogue and the Paladin for Gilgamesh. Representing Thailand and Malaysia. And they're going to be wanting to do their countries and their regions proud. As I'm just taking a look at both lists available for the players. It is the odd Paladin for both, as expected. Odd Rogue is there available for Gilgamesh. Token Druid is the choice for Dizdai, and even Shaman, of course, for Dizdai as well. Token Druid is interesting for me, bringing that over Taunt Druid. Even though I think Taunt Druid is very good against the likes of Odd Paladin, you actually have a better chance with Token Druid, so I can understand Token Druid being the choice. I feel like a lot of people in this tournament are bringing decks that kind of work very well against Odd Paladin, because most people are bringing Odd Paladin, funnily enough. Gilgamesh, a very well-known name. Certainly I've seen the name quite a lot throughout APAC tournaments. Dizdai less so, but he has been there or thereabouts. A lot of minor APAC tournaments he's competed in and done relatively well.
None will survive.
But certainly qualifying for the Asian Games would be something both of these players would like to put on their gaming CV, as it were. As game number 1 is going to be Token Druid versus Odd Paladin. So this is pretty heavily favoured for the Token Druid, I would say.
But we fight.
Anything that has Spreading Plague is going to be good against Odd Paladin. Swipe being there as well. He had Wild Growth available. This is looking like a decent start for Dizdite. But it's not too bad for Gilgamesh either. He does have the ability to just kind of put big minions on the board with Fungalmancer at turn 5. And if Dizdite doesn't pick up the Spreading Plague, then maybe we will see just the Paladin running out of control. But with Violet Teacher being picked up, that means that Gilgamesh has to answer this. Dizdite just trying to delay Gilgamesh as much as possible. And there are 2 ways to answer this if you're Gilgamesh. You could owl it and ignore it if you wanted to, or you can just use the Veteran onto the 4-1 Argent Squire, which I imagine is probably going to be the decision.
Speak your peace.
Does mean you are more susceptible to a swipe, and we can see that swipe. And that is going to delay quite well. Oh, but there's that Spreading Plague that I was talking about, and you are instantly coining that out every day of the week. And you hate to say it, but sometimes you can look at a board like this and think, oh, maybe this is game over already. But with the Fungalmancer available, that means it's certainly going to be an effort from Gilgamesh to get through these 1-5s, but he will get there eventually. Trouble is, after making all these trades, he's going to be greeted by a swipe, which should just deal with the board quite comfortably. Spreading Plague is such a horrible, horrible card to play against if you are an aggressive deck. And the thing is, you can't afford to not go wide with this Paladin deck. It is all about going wide. It's all about these token-based minions. But Gilgamesh would have been hoping that he was able to go relatively wide with the Silverhand recruits and then find something like a level up. Or maybe Stonehill Defender picking up a Tarim, for example, before Spreading Plague was found. Nourish can now ramp up closer to that ultimate infestation if Dizdite would like as well. But I imagine he's probably going to use this swipe just to make sure this 7-2 dies. Power of the Wild going to be used first just to buff up these minions by the looks of it. There was always the option for Soul of the Forest, but I think the most important thing is getting the biggest minion off the board, and that is 7-2 Argent Squire. Unidentified Maul. What's it going to be? Champion's Maul isn't the best option, but it's certainly not the worst. At least it's not providing taunt. And it does allow the board to go wide again, but you are scared of a second Spreading Plague. You're scared of a second swipe. That's why this matchup is so difficult for the Paladins. You are constantly living in fear of, oh no, what happens next? But there is no what happens next currently for Dizdite. He's got Soul of the Forest that he could use just to keep things on board in combination with the Nourish, which I think he might have to. No, he's actually just going to Savage Roar here, just to be able to trade with his face and take as much off the board as possible. This works out quite nicely. Save the Soul of the Forest for later, and then next turn your Ultimate Infestation is available. And that Ultimate Infestation works very well on minions that have 5 health. Corridor Creeper, you don't really want to play it for 7, but otherwise you're just putting 2 1-1s on the board, and obviously the reduced cost is going to help. Just put it on for cheaper. But it is just going to be blown away by this Ultimate Infestation now, I would imagine. And with Ultimate Infestation coming out, you're then going to be drawing closer to your swipes. You're going to be drawing closer to your Spreading Plagues. We can see Malfurion's already in hand as well. And with Lost in the Jungle found, Swipe is already in hand. Providing that Dizdite can combine this with his Violet Teacher. Or he could just play Oaken Summons if he wants to. He could play Oaken Summons if he wanted to. Clearly looks like he's not thinking about Violet Teacher this turn. Instead, he's going to go wide with Whispering Woods, swipe face, and just go for lethal next turn. At least level up can stop that idea though. Lost in the Jungle, plus your hero power, is going to put 4 3/3 taunts. But Savage Roar is going to clean these up very nicely, and you can use Soul of the Forest first. Especially now with 2 in hand. And this is exactly how Dizdai probably would have been expecting the game to go. Providing he actually found the Spreading Plague. That was task number 1 for him. But I think now you probably Soul of the Forest, Savage Roar, clear off all these 3/3s, go face, and then you've won the game. To be fair, considering the speed we've seen players play this far, so far, I'm quite surprised how long Dizdai actually took to take that turn. Because it seemed like a relatively obvious one, but I guess you don't want to give your opponent any kind of chance of winning the game. And Gilgamesh will take one last look at it and see what's drawn. And that's not going to do it. Maybe Dizdai was probably just having a little count, seeing if there was any way he could get lethal through any other cards. But it doesn't matter. It's about getting there. He's got the victory. He's 1-0 up. And he doesn't have to use his Token Druid now for the rest of the series, whereas Odd Paladin still being available for Gilgamesh, which isn't the worst thing in the world. And there is an Odd Paladin available for Dizdai too, as you can see here. Paladin and Shaman remains for Dizdai, whereas Rogue, Hunter, and Paladin all still there for Gilgamesh. If you have just joined us and you're wondering what this tournament is, these are the regional qualifiers for the Asian Games 2018. It's the road to the Asian Games. It is Conquest. It's best of 5. We're in the group stages. This is the Southeast Asia group. And currently with Dizdai being 1-0 up, I guess he's the favourite. That's how Hearthstone kind of works. But, you know, we've seen enough comebacks in our lifetime of Hearthstone. How long's it been now? 4 years? Must be close. So looking at the deck list for Gilgamesh, he has a Odd Rogue. He has a mid-range Hunter also available. They do struggle against some of the decks. It's going to depend how Gilgamesh actually manages to queue these, to be honest, because if he queues it right, it could be okay, but if he queues it badly, like this, mid-range Hunter doesn't typically do very well into Odd Paladin, as Dizdai moves over to his Odd Paladin and gets his second favourable matchup.
None will survive.
A favourable matchup with Firefly, Akras Veteran, and Blessing of Might I add. A lot of early aggressive tools. Oh, Argent Squire's perfect. Argent Squire and Blessing of Might are so difficult to deal with for many decks, to be honest. We could see Diamol just plopped onto the board to try and answer this, but that can be responded to by the Blessing of Might and a Firefly. But at least it means that Divine Shield would be gone, so Explosive Trap will be able to clear off, and you won't be taking the 4 damage. But I think what's important for Dizdai is being able to keep ahead in this early game, not allow any beasts to get too large on the board, because he knows at some point he's going to go too wide for Gilgamesh to be able to deal with. And Gilgamesh has gone for a bluff here. He's played his Venom Strike trap rather than Explosive, and he's going to take unnecessary damage now because of it. He's saying that Later, there's going to be lots of flooding of minions, and the explosive trap, for me, I feel like it's too valuable to be playing at this point. But by doing so, you are taking it more damage, as the Righteous Protector is found. That's another minion that could survive an explosive trap, so that's always good. Disney is just having a little think of, do I want to coin this out though? And then what? How does Gilgamesh, where does he go now? Explosive trap, next turn plus freezing trap? You don't really want to. As Disdai is just going to push even more damage now, with there being no trap to stop it. He's going to continue pressurizing. And you have to imagine with 9 damage on board, you have to explosive trap here. At least it is going to take out the majority of the board. Unless, of course, you find a Purifier's Maul to give you a Divine Shield, which just allows you to push all this damage to face, and that's exactly what Gilgamesh wouldn't have wanted to see. You got to bear in mind, Gilgamesh could have played this explosive trap on 2. And Disdai did not hesitate into pushing into that first secret, by the way. So this Argent Squire would be dead. And now this is just game over. Surely, your flanking strike, sure, okay, you're putting something on the board, but the amount of damage you've already taken at this point against one of the most aggressive decks in the meta right now, you are really going to struggle. Maybe Deathstalker Rexar can get you back into the game. But 8 damage is available. You can go even wider now. You can put a Corridor Creeper on the board. You can actually trade if you want to put Corridor Creeper and Argent Squire. But I think you don't get too greedy at this point with Disdai. You are so far ahead that you can afford to just go face. He knows that if he trades, of course, he triggers the Venom Strike trap, which he will know it is that after hitting face several times in previous turns. So now down to just 5. Deathstalker Rexar is going to have to come out. Puts him back up to 10. But there's still 3 left on board. We're going into turn 6, so no Vine Cleaver is going to be available, but Fungal Mancer is, and that is going to be just more damage that can go out. Alright, if Fungal Mancer wasn't found, then maybe there was a chance that Gilgamesh could turn this around by building a beast, or using Bear Shark and Houndmaster. But the fact now 6 more damage can be pushed. Make that 7, my apologies. Just takes him down to just 3. And I don't know if Wandering Monster or Houndmaster might save you. You Houndmaster the Wolf, kill off the 3-4. That leaves 8 damage left. You Wandering Monster, but then if it's not a taunt minion, you just die. Alternatively, you build a beast and you look for something else. But I don't really know. Something with Lifesteal and Rush, potentially. That's the conclusion Gilgamesh has come to, that he just needs to find something else. You go low cost now, because Galactic Crawler isn't doing anything. Taunt is there, but I don't think it's going to be enough. A 4-9. Okay, well, I say that. 4-9 does stop the majority of damage. But with level up being found, that is going to be the game. And that's going to be Disdai going 2-0 up. He just needed 1 extra damage with the taunt minion. Gilgamesh quite rightly spotting the only way he would be able to survive in that game. But I've got to go back to that turn 2. The explosive trap not being played, the Venom Strike being played as a bluff almost. Saying, I don't think my opponent's going to attack here. I think he'll leave it, and then I can play the explosive and get more value out of it later. And it's gone against him as Disdai 2-0. Disdai from Thailand he played that pretty well. He didn't get too greedy. Played the Corridor Creeper without trading, knew what the secret was, knew it was Venom Strike Trap after the initial push. He was fearless with that initial attack as well into the first secret that was available. He wasn't scared at all if it was explosive anyway. He was like, alright, whatever, if it's explosive I'm just going to refuel this board. So that does leave Even Shaman as the final deck for Dizdai, and Even Shaman does do extremely well in this meta against most decks. So Dizdai should be feeling relatively comfortable going into these last three. Or this last one, potentially. It depends if he wins. But there is always a chance that Gilgamesh could bring this back. And because this is group stage, Gilgamesh will probably want to queue the deck most likely to win. Just to try and ensure that he can have his best chances of getting more wins on the board in case there's any kind of tiebreakers that exist. So maybe he'll queue his Odd Paladin into it. We'll see. No, it's going to be the Odd Rogue, and I guess that makes sense. An Odd Rogue is probably, I'd say it's actually pretty much 50-50 against Even Shaman, but some could argue it has a slight advantage if you get the early game, and the early game is there. Fledgling and Clan Thug. How many times do we see Clan Thug and Fledgling just being available on turn 3? Blink Fox being there as well, and you've got the early start with Dire Mole. But with Eel, with Flame Tongue Totem, Dizdai also has the chance for early game as well. I think you're using the Eel here rather than... I suppose you could use the Flame Tongue Totem because you've got the value of healing up your current totem. Oh wow, but it's just going to be Earthen Might, which essentially does the same thing as Flame Tongue Totem, but it means there isn't a target on the board that the Dire Mole could hit into and can kill in combination with the dagger. The 4 health is what's important here. Of course, with the coin, Gilgamesh can deal with the 2/4, can use his South Sea deckhand as well. But if you are going to coin, I imagine you're probably going to coin a Fledgling because your opponent can't immediately answer it. It's a lot of resources to use just to clear off this 2/4, but Gilgamesh thinks it is worthy. The coin was always designed, and I think it was Ben Brode who said the coin was designed to be that kind of, wow, okay, he's using the coin kind of turn. And that turn didn't scream out to me as wow. It kind of screamed out as desperate. As with the Scale Hide being found, that is a really comfortable way to clear off this 1/1 now. You can hold back the Eel for another time when you can get the full value out of its battle cry of 2 damage. Dizdai feels like it's worth getting the 2/3 body rather than the 1/3. Now we start to see the scariness of the Clan Thug generating itself up to a 4/4, but maybe this is the reason why the Eel was played from Dizdai, because it means that with the Flame Tongue Totem he can kill this Clan Thug off. Maybe a very good prediction from him, because if he had just gone for the Scale Hide, he wouldn't have been able to kill off this Clan Thug whatsoever. And now, with the Juggle also going face, that turn works out perfectly for him. Gilgamesh slowly but surely starting to fall behind and opting to go for Blink Fox as well, rather than using the dagger to kill off the Knife Juggler. Does mean that Knife Juggler is going to get quite a bit of value here. Saronite Chain Gang looks tempting. Mainly just for the juggles. But the fact that you've got a Flame Tongue Totem on the board and the Scalehide has charge just trades so perfectly here. And the Juggles are hitting the right one as well. Using the other Might to keep the Scalehide alive, keep as far ahead on this board as possible. And the odd rogue can really struggle to get back in a game sometimes. Yes, okay, it does have things like Vilespine Slayer, like SI7 Agent, but right now, Gilgamesh can't even combine anything with the SI7 Agent. Alright, you can use a Cold Blood on an enemy minion if you would like. But you don't really want to be doing that, so he's just going to do what he can by just plopping a Fledgling onto the board. But with Argent Commander there, Saronite Chain Gang as well, Sea Giant now off the top too. Surely you're just playing the Sea Giant, you're playing your big minion here, you're then trading in, and you're begging the question of how do you answer this? But Dizdai is playing the safer route. He's playing the longer game. If he did play the Sea Giant, it would mean that he's more susceptible to a Vilespine turn. And I suppose turn 6 is the likelihood for a Vilespine turn. So this way, he just goes wide on the board, he continues to generate pressure, but his opponent can't just answer back immediately. It's going to have to be the SI7 Agent onto the Scalehide just to do what you can now as Gilgamesh to try and stay alive, but 6 damage already on board. Argent Commander is going to get value. Like, this Flame Tongue Totem has done so much work. And if Dizdai hadn't had enough removal already, Hagathur is there in case things do go south, but I don't know if things are going to go south. Is this the turn that you use the Sea Giant? You can trade in the first Saronite Chain Gang into the Vicious Fledgling just so no stupid shenanigans happen over there. And just plop a Sea Giant on the board. Start to set up a 2-turn lethal here. As a 3-0 victory would be fantastic for Dizdai. No real answers available for Gilgamesh either. He needs a Vilespine, he needs one now. That is not a Vilespine Slayer. Not even Dagger plus Deadly Poison plus Cold Blood will allow the Sea Giant to be killed either. As I think he might have noticed now that he's going to be struggling these next few turns. He can get rid of the Flame Tongue Totem. Well, this next turn, shall I say. He can get rid of the Flame Tongue Totem just to stay alive, but we can see in the hand for Dizdai, the Argent Commander is going to be charging onto the board. He's going to be winning this series 3-0. Gilgamesh struggling with every single one of his decks, losing with the Odd Paladin, with the Mid Hunter, and the Odd Rogue. Admittedly, the first two weren't the best matchups for him. Token Druid and Odd Paladin doing really well. But he did have that chance against Even Shaman, but regardless, Dizdai is going to be the victor here. A massive 3-0 victory for him. Congratulations. Welcome back, everyone, to the Road to the Asian Games. It's the regional qualifiers, and my name is still Dan Gaskin. We are going to be in the South Asia group here between Turth and Jedi. It's going to be India and Sri Lanka represented. It's going to be best of 5 conquest still. 1 ban, 4 classes, 4 decks brought to the table. Warlock taken away from Turth. And it's going to be Hunter taken away from Jedi. Shall I go for GCT rather than Turth? Or Gukt Turth? I'm going to go for GCT. I think that's the solid pick. He has Druid, Warrior, and Priest, whereas Jedi great name, by the way, has Warlock, Druid, and Paladin. This is an open decklist format, so they will know what they're playing against and they'll know what they are banning. It's not just a case of banning what they think is good. They will take a look at what their opponent has and what they feel like they have the best chance against. So with GCT losing his Warlock, that means it's even Warlock taken away, a very sensible decision. Even Warlock doing really well in the meta right now. And Jedi getting his Hunter taken away, so getting his Recruit Hunter banned. And for GCT, he has Taunt Druid, he has Quest Warrior, and he has Control Priest. So you can understand why the Recruit Hunter ban is in place for him. But let's jump into game number 1 then, with GCT starting on that Quest Warrior. Now, Quest Warrior, I have questioned a couple of times throughout tournaments. Is it good enough? Is it viable? Should we be bringing it? Well, it can do extremely well against some of the best decks, like Odd Paladin, for example. So maybe if GCT doesn't find a win here, there is always that chance that maybe he'll face off against one later on. But he's going to be going up against the Malygos Druid. A variant of Druid that, again, I don't think is the most popular the most popular version of Druid, but it certainly does the job. Any Druid that has Spreading Plague is going to work in this kind of meta where there's so many different decks that go wide. Relatively even game though, you'd imagine this one. It's going to come down to whether this Malygos Druid can find all the pieces to the puzzle quick enough before hell starts to rain down after the quest has been completed, Sulfurous gets equipped, and Die Insect becomes the hero power. But at least the Wild Growth was found from Jedi. Branching Pass allows him to just draw through his deck as well. But it does mean this Acolyte is just going to be sat on the board, and Bloodraiser next turn for GCT is going to allow more card draw. And the good thing about playing Quest Warrior against any sort of deck that is also slow and is also looking for a combo is you're in no rush as to play out your taunt straight away. You can take this time to just draw a little bit more and then start putting your taunts on the board. Until you feel threatened and feel like you have to be putting the taunts on, you are probably going to complete your quest before your opponent is able to get all their combo pieces. I've always thought it's a shame that Saronite Chain Gang doesn't trigger twice. Of course, we know why it doesn't trigger twice. But can you imagine how different Quest Warrior would be if the text was ever so slightly different on being able to go up the quest counter? Maybe it would be too obnoxious. You know, the Blizzard team, they usually get their cards right. I say usually, sometimes there's nerfs. We have seen quests get nerfed before. But Quest Warrior has kind of wormed its way back into the meta. It wasn't there. It just disappeared. When quests were first a thing, it showed up and it was like, hey, I'm Quest Warrior. I have an amazing hero power after I complete my quest. But then fell out of favor, and it's always good to see it come back. And I guess the rotation has helped. The low power level of the new cards from the latest expansion has allowed it to worm its way back in. But look at the amount of ramp that Jedi has been able to get done whilst I've been waffling. The most important card that Jedi is probably looking for is Twig of the World Tree. The key to this deck, really. If you've not played Malygos Druid before, it's relatively simple. You get Twig of the World Tree, you attack 4 times, you leave the final charge until you have a one-turn kill available in your hand, which is usually Malygos. Then you hit in, you get the 10 mana, you then swipe, and then Moonfire. And that gives you a lot of damage. Jedi is risking losing some of those tools, But he certainly knows there is armor gain in this deck available for GCT as well. You can get out of reach of an OTK, and that can mean that sometimes the Malygos Druid has to go down a different game plan. I've seen some Malygos Druids run Togwoggle to switch a deck and then use naturalizers just to make sure you can't switch back. But that's not the case for Jedi's deck. It is very much the default version of Malygos Druid. With another card being burnt. Looks like Jedi's going to go slightly on the defensive with Spreading Plague here. If he is going to do that, drawing first with Ferocious Howl to get the maximum value out of the armor makes a lot of sense. Can kill off one of these Saronite Chain Gangs if he wants to with the Spellstone now too. But with 3 out of 7 on the ticker for the quest, and now the Phantom being available, 2 Phantoms being available with Echo, but 3 Phantoms there, it means that GCT is going to complete this over the next 2 turns. And if he can start firing down Die Insect before Twig of the World Tree is found, he should just win this game. It is the main issue with Malygos Druid, is that if Twig of the World Tree is at the bottom of your deck, you're probably going to lose the match. I say probably because there are alternatives. I mean, there are some big minions, like, look at this, Lich King is available. But unfortunately, there's no way for the Malygos Druid to draw the weapon out of the deck apart from pure cycle. Of course, other classes have ability to draw weapons out of the deck. Rogue can do it, Warrior can do it. To be fair, I think if Druid could do it, then this might be one of the best decks around. Because if you do get that Twig of the World Tree early, you are in such a fantastic position. Brawl is there, but I don't think you need it at this point. Instead, you're probably looking at just executing this Lich King, getting your Taunt minions on the board, completing this quest. Next turn you've got Sulfurous, next turn you can start bringing the noise. You're cranking the volume up to 150%. And you're making your opponent put their fingers in their ears and hoping that the 8 damage isn't hitting what you want it to hit. And with no Twig of the World Tree found, it means Jedi has to go on the defensive and has to start thinking now with quest completed, how can I win this game down different lines, down different routes. He's still drawing, he finds Twig of the World Tree, and now you can start to kind of hope that you can get through these next 4 turns without dying. Of course, with Medivh disappearing, there's no way, unfortunately, for Jedi to destroy his own weapon. I think you just take, you put Sulfurous on the board now, or on the board, in your hand.
Nice little raptors.
Gain some armor first. I like this. I really, really like this from GCT. You gain some armor first because then you are putting yourself out of reach of that potential OTK as well. And you get guaranteed 8 damage to face. I mean, what can often happen is that once you play the Malygos and once you then destroy the Twig, is if you've got double swipe in hand, you can usually clear any board. So you send all the damage face, but then you've still got a Malygos on the board as well. But there are Faceless Manipulators, they can also do damage. Combine that with a Malygos, 1 swipe and 2 Moonfires. As GCT is just going to take this time now just to brawl. Hope it's something that he can remove, or hope it's one of his minion that survives. Which it isn't, unfortunately. That isn't the best answer for him, the best result. But He's just going to save back this weapon charge here. 2 Moonfires and 1 Swipe available, so that means that there is the option of Malygos, then destroying the twig once you've run out of charges, facelessing that Malygos, swiping double Moonfire. So you're going to get plus 10. So that is a considerable amount of damage. Still not enough. It's what, 34? But still not enough to get through this armor. But then, those Malygoses need to be removed, because there's always a chance then for another swipe. Slam onto the Acolyte's really good. 2 more cards can be drawn because of this. And because Jedi wasn't able to play anything, it does mean that this barrage of fire can just continue to head face. And this was what I was saying about the twig arriving late, is that there is no option for Jedi but to just wait now and hope that he survives long enough. But even if he does survive long enough, ooh, Malfurion might help. He doesn't have that OTK available because of the armor gain. Malfurion can delay though. Ideally for him, what he would like is to be able to push as much damage as possible, keep 2 Malygoses alive thanks to Faceless after the twig's gone, hope that there's no removal, draw that second swipe, be able to push face damage with the dragons that are already on board, and then get the damage. But Execute might have something to say about that. And Ooze just ruins everything! I was going to say, if there's the weapon removal does turn up for GCT, it's heartbreak for Jedi. He had the chance this turn to hit in, play Malygos, hit in, Faceless Malygos, swipe face, get all that extra damage onto the minions, then use Moonfires as well, but now he just only has the Moonfire and he just has to hope and pray that this Malygos survives, but unfortunately there is an Execute there.
Nice little raptors.
Combined with the Whirlwind, allows the Cornered Sentry on the board. The 8 damage is going to go face 2. What a perfect timing for the Ooze, and I think that's what GCT's been digging for this whole time. I didn't see it in his list, but I see it now. And I think, as I was saying, that it's a somewhat favoured matchup, ever so slightly for the Malygos Druid, but it makes that considerably less favoured when there is weapon removal available. And this is going to be such a struggle now, unfortunately, for Jedi with the game plan gone. It's the equivalent of your Twig of the World Tree just getting burnt right at the start of the game, to be honest. And if that did happen, maybe that would be better, because maybe you could just then have that game plan right from the get-go of, I need to win this game in a different way. Or, alternatively, maybe you're just conceding. And out of cards now, Jedi, he's probably taking a look, and I imagine he will concede here. And GCT is going to go 1-0 up. It is thanks to the Ooze. There was a decent opportunity if the Ooze wasn't found for silly things to happen with Malygos. But we don't even need to think about those silly things, because it is going to be a victory for GCT. GCT from India, by the way. Jedi from Sri Lanka. As the Quest Warrior gets that victory. And you know what? I can't question anyone bringing Quest Warrior if you get the victories. So now GCT, he has Taunt Druid available. He has Control Priest. And I think Control Priest is another deck that's very interesting. It's not performing exceptionally well on ladder. But there are people that are still playing it. There are still people that are bringing it to tournaments because it does have this place in the meta. It can do very well against things like Odd Paladin, for example. I mean, you look at GCT's lineup in general, Quest Warrior, can beat Odd Paladin very comfortably. Control Priest can beat Odd Paladin very comfortably. Taunt Druid isn't as favoured against Odd Paladin. In fact, Odd Paladin is technically favoured, but I think it has very good chances against Odd Paladin. I would certainly take my chances as a Taunt Druid player against Odd Paladin, that's for sure. But game number 2 is going to be Taunt Druid versus Malygos Druid. A game that actually I've played quite a lot of as of late. It is favoured for the Taunt Druid, but you do have to play quick, because you can't give the Malygos Druid time. And Twig of the World Tree being picked up early on is so very crucial for Jedi. I am just going to scour GCT's list to see if he has any weapon removal in this deck as well, but he doesn't. I don't think. No, there isn't. You imagine there is not going to be in Taunt Druid, but I just wanted to double check. And so with Twig being found, now Jedi is just going to be drawing through his deck. Because surviving these first 6 or 7 turns isn't going to be too difficult. It's going to be that turn 8, turn 9 mark where things start to get a little bit more crazy. And Jedi is just going to take the time now to actually start drawing cards, rather than equipping the Twig straight away. Actually just getting some armor rather than drawing 2. Maybe seeing the Nourish, he wants to be able to draw with that later. Tar Creeper being available. That's something that's not in every Taunt Druid as well. Maybe added as like an anti-aggro tool. Of course, does work very well with Master Oakheart. You do see people trying to manipulate Oakheart as best as they can. But now Jedi ramping up. He's got Ultimate Infestation there. He does have Twig, although he doesn't need to be equipping the Twig straight away, but he will want to be thinking about that at some point. Getting it down to its 1 durability. Of course, if you are equipping it and then you are using it, you are accepting that in 4 turns time you are not going to be using your hero power to attack at any point. And there's no way currently for GCT to deal with this Lich King. Wrath can't do it. Maybe are you branching past and you're searching for a Naturalize or something here? Because you can't afford to just leave a Lich King alive. I mean, Lich King technically is already dead in World of Warcraft lore, but it's such a scary minion. And if you think about the fact that it can be adding extra spell damage cards, or extra cards that can be affected by spell damage, like the Death Coil we can see, you do need to think about getting rid of it. So Branching Paths is going to be used to probably draw cards, I would imagine, at this point. All he needs is to find like a spell stone or something, and then he would be able to clear it off. And the animation's slightly ahead. Oh, he found a Naturalize in the end. Okay, so he has found a way to get rid of the Lich King, so that was really important from GCT. I like him recognizing that he had to start digging, because if that Lich King had survived, he would have really struggled over the next few turns. Now Twig is going to be equipped. But Malygos hasn't been found just yet. 16 cards, only halfway through the deck. But thanks to the armor gain here, he's going to be able to just kill off this golem comfortably. But now these are the scary turns that I was talking about for GCT. With Lich King being there on turn 8. Then got the Dragon Hatchling on 9 if he wants to, that will pull out a Sleepy Dragon or a Primordial Drake. And then he's got Hadronox already there waiting in the wings to be used. Oh, and Faceless is going to be used on the Lich King here. Because really you don't want to be using your swipes to get rid of minions. That's why the Death Coil was quite nice to be having here, because... Oh, he's going to use one swipe. This is okay, though. If you've got one Faceless left in the deck, you've got Swipe and Double Moonfire, that's still a lot of damage that's available. And most importantly, you've got an 8/8 that's left on the board that you saw your opponent was digging a lot for. Master Hokar, hello, nice to meet you. Unfortunately, Tar Creeper's already been drawn, Hadronox is already in the hand as well. And Dragon Hatcher is already there. And there is only one Dragon Hatcher, so Oakheart's doing nothing at this point. So GCT getting on the defensive and just playing Hadronox here and now, but that defensive play is just opening up Jedi to say, alright, well, this is my time, this is my moment, I'm going to get aggressive, I'm going to push for all the damage I can here. And there's Malygos. So look at the World Tree, cannot be destroyed for another 2 turns after this. But Jedi is going to burn one card. Is he okay with burning a card? He does have Death and Decay, which just adds to the potential damage available. But I think what's important is not burning the Faceless Manipulator.
Job's done.
I think because you have Death and Decay, you can afford to get rid of one Moonfire. But as Lich King does provide a card, it means he's still going to burn something anyway. So Jedi either just not realizing that Lich King was going to give something, or valuing the potential Lich King card over a Moonfire that could be 11 damage later on. And now here comes the pain. And now Turth is going to want to put as much on the board as possible, go as wide as he can. He was probably hoping for maybe a better card from Lich King as well. Anti-Magic Shell is always the ideal when you are Taunt Druid. But next turn the Twig of the World Tree is going to be able to be destroyed. He can then combine that with Malygos plus Swipe, which will be able to clear pretty much any board, as well as Death and Decay as well. But Death and Decay is going to be used now instead. I think Jedi is concerned about these Lich Kings and what they can do. But most importantly, he just has to take a swing with this Twig of the World Tree. And he's done well on getting rid of as much as he can to make sure he survives, make sure he avoids lethal possibilities from Anti-Magic Shell, and of course branching paths as well. I can imagine that there's always so much burst potential from Taunt Druid because of branching paths, and when you've already seen Lich Kings as well, you do have to be scared. But this is going to be the turn now. One Naturalize has already been seen by Jedi, so he might just say, alright, well, Malygos, swing in, I've got Swipe, it's gonna clear the board, and then I hope my Malygos survives. Alright, he feels safe, and he feels like he would rather draw through his deck, find the extra damage, and try and find actually a one-turn kill. There's still one more Faceless available, I believe. And there it is. As our spectator was double checking the amount of cards. Whereas I have the luxury of a nice little overlay telling me how many cards are left.
I'm almost out of cards.
And Jedi is just kind of drawing through everything here. So there's 21 health for GCT. He wants to be healing up, but he actually can't heal up. And I believe that might just be lethal now for Jedi. Plays Malygos, swings in, Swipe. Well, swings in Faceless, Swipe, and Moonfire. And you have Thalnos there as well, just for overkill in case you need it. And Jedi is going to be tying this one up 1-1. In a really well played game by him. He's drawn through his whole deck, so you'd expect to win a game if you draw through your whole deck. But the fact he's been able to keep GCT at a low enough health total to be able to finish him off like this has been really impressive. Taking the initiative to copy a Lich King, try and keep the Lich King alive, recognizing that he needed to use one of his swipes to make sure that his Lich King survived so he could actually push that damage as well. Knowing what his combo was, knowing what his outs were. An awesome game, awesome game to watch. Especially when you consider that the Malygos Druid is not favoured. Yes, it helps when you get the Twig of the World tree early. But you've got to look at some of the minuscule decisions that had to come out from Jedi to be able to tie the series up. It is best of 5. So one of the players does have to win 3 games with every single deck, as it is Conquest. So back to the drawing board for GCT then. He didn't find a win with his Taunt Druid, but he can just queue it up again if he wants to, or we can go back or we can go to his Control Priest that I was talking about. One of the matchups is going to be against Odd Paladin. And GCT will be very confident with either, I feel. Regardless of what online statistics say about Taunt Druid, it can do extremely well against the Paladin, but we don't need to worry about that. It's going to be Control Priest versus Paladin, which statistically, apparently, is a 70% win rate for Control Priest at Legend Ladder, which is a massive win rate, really, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. And you know why. Duskbreakers, they exist. They are the kryptonite of Odd Paladin. You add Pyromancer in there as well, plus healing, plus Psychic Scream, plus Primordial Drakes. You can see why people wanted to bring Control Priest. You can see why Control Priest is popular. As Iron Beak Owl is just going to be used to stop any sort of healing coming onto this Northshire Cleric, being able to draw more cards, because Jedi knows the further GCT gets through his deck, the more likely he's going to be able to find those nuisance cards, and 2 of them already in the hand, potentially 3, potentially even 4. You've got to say Master Spell as well. How good is that against Odd Paladin? Let's say the Odd Paladin manages to build up a board with Level Up or with Tarim, and you don't have Duskbreakers in hand, but you can go Pyromancer into Master Spell. You're laughing. And I imagine GCT is probably laughing pretty loud getting both Duskbreakers in hand. I've always said, if you can build a deck around Duskbreakers that works and that has some sort of endgame ability, if you have those Duskbreakers early on, you're probably going to win. It's such a good card. With the rotations and some of the dragons being lost, we didn't know if Priest was really going to survive. And I mean, Inner Fire Combo Priest was a really popular deck, and it's now just come back into life as well. We've seen iterations of it. But Control Priest is something that maybe we didn't expect. And Jedi is just really going to struggle getting back into the board here. Mainly because even with Fungalmancer, Duskbreaker is just going to be punishing him. And Jedi's not playing around a second one either. Jedi slowly running out of resources, but Vine Cleaver is available on 7, and you do have to bear in mind with this deck that even after several board clears, when you get Vine Cleaver out, there is always the chance that you're going to get a turn where you get Vine Cleaver, you get Hero Power, you get Level Up, and suddenly it's another board your opponent really has to be concerned about.
Reporting for duty. Nice to meet you.
And it's all in now for Jedi. All in with the follow-up of Vine Cleaver. Is there just the one Vine Cleaver in his... Yeah, there is. Just the one Vine Cleaver available for Jedi of Sri Lanka. I have seen lists, and I think my personal list I run 2 Vine Cleavers, but I can completely understand why you might cut one. Leroy Jenkins being in this deck, sometimes that's cut. Not often, but sometimes. This Vine Cleaver is going to be able to at least trade into the board quite well and start to build some sort of a threat, but unfortunately, everything's going to kind of be crushed by this Primordial Drake. And the scary thing is the burst potential that's available as well for this Control Priest.
Job's done.
You can see that Mind Blast is already in hand. If you think that there's 2 Shadow Visions that are available as well, there is the option in games to get 4 Mind Blasts. That's 20 damage just out of hand.
Reporting for duty.
And Leroy Jenkins showing up to the party probably at this moment in time wasn't really invited.
Reporting for duty.
This Jedi continues to go wide. But Psychic Scream, ooh, it's awfully tempting sometimes to throw 1/1s back into the deck, but I think he has enough on the board that he doesn't need to worry about that. Combine this with Divine Hymn if you want, just to heal back up that Primordial Drake. As the final charge of Vine Cleaver is going to have to be used even to try and get through this Drake. At least the addition of Veteran into the hand means that the Drake can die.
Reporting for duty.
So there are silver linings.
Speak your peace.
But GCT of India is going to be edging closer to 2-1 in this series now. And really showing kind of why he's picked this lineup. It can single-handedly just target off Paladin. Shadow Reaper Anduin available now. Mind Blast is there as well. I think you might just be Anduin this turn. You Anduin, you send 2 extra damage to face, and then next turn you have 9 just out of hand with your Hero Power and Mind Blast. He's being safe and taking precautions. Knows that he's just going to win the game next turn. Stonehill Defender, I don't think there's anything that can save Jedi here. It would need to be something that can heal him up and protect him. Unfortunately, none of those minions do that.
Reporting for duty.
So for GCT, he's now going to be having to go back to his Taunt Druid to try and win this series. And Jedi is going to be forced to still try and find a victory with this Odd Paladin. This was a very tough matchup for him. As I mentioned earlier, it's around a 30% win rate for Odd Paladin against Control Priest at Legend ranks on ladder.
Job's done.
And I'm tempted to say that if you look at maybe tournament play and if you look at some of the top tier players, if they were to do show matches with this, I think that the win percentage would probably be even more so for the Control Priest. Because what there is to offer in that deck. And how it is so well tailored to beat aggressive decks like the Odd Paladin. But GCT is going to go 2-1 up here. The man from India is cruising ever closer to winning this series. But he does need to find a victory with a Taunt Druid. And a Taunt Druid does do fairly well against most decks. And interestingly for Jedi, his Warlock is in fact a Zoolock. So both aggressive decks that are left for Jedi. Now, they do and can do typically well against Taunt Druid if Taunt Druid doesn't find its ramp, doesn't find its early game, doesn't find Oaken Summons, for example. We don't really need to worry about the Warlock right now. We're going to be looking at this Paladin. Level up is going to be there in hand, and that's a great tool to have. But double Spellstone is such a good way at stopping any early pressure against the Paladin. And okay, there's not Oaken Summons, but Ironwood Golem effectively does the same thing, you just don't get the armor gain. What's important is just putting a blockade in front of your opponent. But at least there is an Iron Beak Owl available. It does mean that if a wall is kind of put up,
Job done.
Jedi has some way of getting through it. But with Swipe being found from GCT, it means that there's not going to be a chance for an early level up. As soon as that board goes wide, GCT will 100% be swiping it away if he even gets a whiff of a potential level up.
Out of my jungle.
And with GCT starting with the coin, it means Jedi isn't gonna Silver Hand recruit just yet this turn. He can afford to wait, put a Stonehill Defender in the way, maybe try and bait out a swipe at this point. But if you're GCT, you are waiting one more turn, I think. Yeah, you're playing the Ironwood Golem. I really like this, recognizing that there is no way the level up can be played. Of course, you have the coin. Your opponent is probably going to go even wider here. And you can just do the same, and you can remove a board at some point later on when level up is actually a threat. As Jedi is just getting so aggressive using this owl. He's saying, look, if I'm going to waste this time getting through this taunt anyway, I'm probably going to lose this game. But Swipe is
Job's done.
not going to be the prettiest sight for Jedi. And without even any hesitation, we have seen a lot of fast play in this series and in this tournament
Done.
so far.
Reporting for duty.
But some players just play themselves. Whereas GCT seems so confident. I mean, just getting stuff on the board is really important. It also means that once this cube dies, he's going to get 2 golems back. But there is another level up. And maybe you're just using one here. Maybe you feel like you have to. No, Jedi is not going to. He says, I'm going to go wide and I'm going to try and get more value out of a level up. But if we get to turn 8, I fear that maybe this game is over. If that Drake comes out, and then a Lich King, and then Sleepy Dragon as well. So I imagine these spellstones, one spellstone is probably going to be used. Maybe you're cubing your own cube here to get 2 taunts out as well. And this puts so much pressure on your opponent. Okay, the level up is going to be able to use, and you're going to get 4 3/3s out of it. But those 3/3s are having to trade into the 3/6. With the hero power, at least you get 2 extra ones. Jedi doing what he can. And actually, he's in an alright spot. Turn 7 typically isn't the best turn for Taunt Druid. There's quite a lot of pressure on the board now for him, especially with another level up available as well. GCC is going to need some form of blockade, and an Ironwood Golem does put a little bit of a wall in the way. I don't think you use your Naturalize here. You're probably using your Spellstone just to get rid of this Corridor Creeper. Just to get rid of a Taunt, sorry, with the face. And now I imagine Jedi, considering how he's been playing, I think he's probably going to go Hero Power, Righteous Protector, and level up to go and give a last-ditch attempt. It's a horrible trade onto this onto this Golem, but you probably have to take it. But now you can trade in, you can Primordial Drake first, and then you trade in afterwards, leaving just a 3-1 and a 1-1 on the board. And this is where the Odd Paladin really struggles once you get to these latter stages, even with Purifier's Maul, even with probably the best Maul that you can get in most scenarios. Right now, it's not so great. Because you need damage, you need to be able to get through these inevitable taunts that are going to be arriving. As the Observer decides they want to just hover over and see what card is what, apparently. That's alright, I think everyone knows. Maybe you're just stating something. Are you trying to tell me something, Mr. or Mrs. Observer? But with Lich King here, Naturalize is available if you need it as well, and I think in this position, why on earth not? You're not really too concerned about giving your opponent cards, you're just trying to stop them being able to kill off all your minions that are on board. And you even get face pressure now as with Death Coil also coming into the hand for GCT. I think he's going to take the series. It's been a really well played series for him. Although it's not been a bad one from Jedi, I must admit. I mean, we look at that Malygos Druid game against the Taunt Druid, and Jedi played that really, really well. But now he is really stuck between a rock and a hard place.
The light protects me.
Or stuck between a Lich King and a hard place now at this rate. Divine Favor just to see if he can find any other answers. The Champion's Maul isn't helping. Not really. What he could have done with is a Sunkeeper Tarim maybe off of his Stonehill Defender. Certainly might have made things more easy for him, but he has been able to get through this Lich King. He is going to take down the Primordial Drake, but there's no taunts for him, so that means that this 8-1 can be killed off very easily. Sleepy Dragon can arrive onto the board, or you know, you can just win the game with Death Coil and a hero power and take the series 3-1. That is what the Lich King can offer. It can offer those extra ways of winning a game. Jedi throws out the well played, and it was a well played series for GCT. A well deserved one. The man from India has got an excellent lineup. It counters Odd Paladin so well. 2 victories against Odd Paladin, and I wouldn't have been surprised if Jedi had queued up it 3 times. He probably could have won 3-0 against Odd Paladin. But in the end, it is a 3-1. A massive congratulations to GCT on getting the victory.